Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 345. My name is Colin Moriarty of the Village Hidden in Sand. I'm sorry, I already fucked it up. That's all right. I'm joined as always by my son, who also apparently is from the same village, Chris Raygun. Chris.
Yeah, hi. What's up?
Friend.
It's me. It's Chris. I'm also from the Hidden Sand Village or whatever. How you doing? How's
Good,
it going,
good
man?
to see you. Yeah. You look great.
Thank you.
We both look pretty good, I think, today.
Yeah, I think I'll keep this on.
Yeah,
forever.
When I put it on downstairs, Micah said the headband stays on during sex.
That's upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, I have sex every now and again. Dustin's not the only one.
Wow. I was going to say, Colin, I made my own coffee beforehand, so I can't signal. Well, maybe I am sending a signal. It's like, sex not happening the last few days.
You're right.
That's okay. There's still time.
Right.
For the rest of the week.
The day is young as well.
Yeah.
There's still time.
Still time.
Yeah.
It's only 1:07. Yeah. You got a lot of time left.
A lot of time.
Dustin Furman, executive producer. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing just fine. I'm happy to see you guys. Colin, I brought a show and tell item I wanted to show you. So yeah. Holly is like painting and doing some stuff in our spare bedroom. And she ended up taking off the bottom wood of the walls. I can't remember what it's called.
The molding?
The molding. She found that this was hidden underneath, and I thought you might appreciate it.
Oh, an X-Wing.
It's an X-Wing, but it's like one of those 3D, like it has motion to it.
It was hidden underneath. So is that from you?
I believe I stuck this to my wall.
And it fell.
And it fell down. But what's interesting is I must have had it for a while because it's dated 1996. And this is going to be impossible for you guys to see.
Yeah.
It's from Doritos, from when they re-released the
original movies.
The special edition Star Wars.
Yeah, that was a big the special edition, that was 97.
Yeah.
When they came to theaters, early 97.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You were a little kid. I was in 8th grade when that happened.
Wow.
So I remember very well because my mom took me out of school all 3 days. The movie A New Hope, Empire, and Jedi came out a month apart. And so that Friday she would take me out of school and we would go see each of them, the special editions.
That's cool.
Because I was such a huge nerd.
Dude, I remember this was sometime when I was in high school or early college. I think they were going to re-release all the Star Wars movies in 3D in theaters. And they started with episode 1, and I went, and I was like, I'm going to do all 6. And then I think when Disney bought Star Wars, they're like, nah, none of that. So it's sad. I only got to experience episode 1 in theaters again.
Yeah.
Which
I
was
9th grade for that. Late 9th grade. We were so excited. I didn't accept that episode 1 was bad immediately.
Oh,
I wasn't one of those people. I liked it at first. I didn't love it, but I was like, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
And then the more I saw it again, and then I was like, it wasn't quite like it is today where you would have known everyone hated it or a lot of people hated it. I was on forums and,
Right.
I think about that a lot too, but like how bad are things truly? In the sense that, like, would we feel so unanimously opposed to the things that in pop culture do suck were it not for the fact that there was like a megaphone and kind of an immediate understanding of how you were supposed to feel about a piece of media moments after it came out? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, would Suicide Squad suck now versus like in 2001? It still would suck, but like how much would the difference be? I feel like it's pretty substantial, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is all. I feel that way most recently about Intergalactic, where if I didn't interact with anything and I just watched the trailer and then never saw anything, I loved it and I thought everyone would have been into it.
You would have been like, that was cool.
Yeah. So, but I was just, I was in a little bit of denial about episode 1 for a while because it really isn't good. Although I'm of the mind that episode 1 is the best prequel movie. There's a lot in that movie to like. The first 10 minutes, I love.
That's a hot take, I think.
It is a hot take. Everyone loves 3 the best.
Yeah.
But to me, 3, so it's funny, like the evolution. By the time 3 came out, I was in college. And I was like, this fucking sucks. Like at that point, I knew, like I hated episode 2, which came out when I was a senior in high school. So I was kind of interestingly, I was like adultizing as I went older. And I was like, by the time I got there, I was like, I can't stand this. It was when, I guess it was an episode, was it 2 or 3 where Yoda jumps around the room and I was like, this fucking
That's
sucks.
3.
Yeah, I was like, this
disrespectful.
sucks. It was like the first time I had ever seen anything in Star Wars. I was like, I cannot. It's akin to the Leia floating in space thing from episode 8, where I was like, oh my God, you can't come back from that.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no coming back from that decision. Dude, and the Yoda jumping around the room thing, I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah, Yoda doing little Cirque du Soleil moves.
Still can't believe it, to be honest.
It is crazy. Because I don't know, I'm not a Star Wars person really at all, but even those things to me stick out as particularly dumb. Even with my like very layman's kind of understanding of what the fuck is supposed to be happening.
There was George. He was like, "We have Yoda, and he's an old man, but he's really powerful. He jumps around. He dances with his lightsaber.
I want him to flip around like a little, I don't know, like a jumping bean. I want him to do little flips. And I want him to rhyme.
Little ballerina."
Jumping bean. That is like in the George Lucas voice is awesome. Yeah. So he does that amazing fight, and then 25 years later, he's hiding like a bitch on Dagobah. Why?
He's got arthritis.
Yeah, it just set in. He was 850 years old when he found Count Dooku or whatever. He's 875 on Dagobah. Suddenly
That's the age. That's the age when Yoda arthritis kicks in.
Right.
We don't know it because he's just entering his senior years.
Right.
You know, that's kind of that's what I take away from it.
They nailed Yoda in Empire so well, and it's such a shame that, like, when he first meets him and he acts like he's old and crazy, and like it's like such a good scene. It's really well done. And then ultimately lifting the X-Wing out. The Xbox. Ultimately lifting the X-Wing out to so he can go back. I don't know. That was like his power. Like it was like it wasn't a physical anyway.
When he lifts the red wing out of the red ring out of the lake.
What do you think about there's the Darth Jar Jar theory that was, he's like, oh, it rhymes. That Jar Jar was supposed to be the Yoda.
Jar Jar
instead of turns out being a good guy, ends up being a Sith.
I don't know.
Jar Jar is the key to all of this. Is one of the most iconic sentences that has ever been said, because it implies so much that the creator of Star Wars would even say something like that.
We got to get Jar Jar working, which is an implication that he knows that it's not working.
Right. It's it's not working. It's not working, and B, this is pivotal. It's just like without, like, if this doesn't work, we're fucked. And oh God, I love it. I love every possible version of reality that springs forward from that sentence.
I've said it a million times, but the greatest shot of all that is just their faces after they all watch the first screening of it. That's like one of my favorite shots in all those documentaries, and they just look like, oh no.
Yeah.
What did George say? No. I may have gone a little too far in some places.
Oh my God, it's good to see you guys. I slept like shit last night.
Oh, really?
I can't stop having the same nightmare style dreams. Like, they're not nightmares where I'm being chased by a beast or something like that.
Right.
But I think I might have said this on the show in the past. Certainly on one of the shows, is like I have recurring dreams where they're in the same universe, but they're different dreams that take place in this space with like a certain set of rules, and it's not even supernatural. So like there's a dream state I go into where I am somehow back in high school.
Yeah.
And I know that that's normal for people, but there's a whole lineage of like the classes I take and where I need to be on certain days and how I've dropped some of these classes. And like the entire time in my head, I'm like, I don't think I should have to be here, but I can't get over the hump of being like, Colin, you graduated from college. You don't have to be in high school anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's a very common thing, like for people to be back in school, but that's like my specific thing is there is a continuity to it. That like I'm entering and leaving and entering this place. And and it's my old high school, some dream state of it. And then there's another where I'm back at Northeastern in Boston, and it's always nighttime, and I'm always running around the city trying to get places or to see people, and I can never get there on time, or I can never be where I'm supposed to be on time. I go to the airport and I'm always forgetting my passport. And I'm traveling in it. It's very weird. And I am, it's been a few years that I've had these dreams. And it's fucking strange. And I wake up sometimes like where I'm like, holy, like my heart's beating and I'm
stressed out.
Yeah, like I'm really stressed out because in the dream, like just 2 seconds ago, I was like late to a class or something. Or I was like, I couldn't get to where I was going in Boston. And I was, no matter how hard I tried.
Yeah.
And I just, last night was just bad.
For me, those
so I probably
dreams
look
are
even more
always-
like shit than I usually do.
For me, those dreams are always like, it's never I'm late for a class. It's always like, I don't know what room I'm supposed to be in.
Yep.
You know, like I don't know what room this class is supposed to be in. And I don't know where the main office is to go check. So it's like, I'm running around and I'm scared. It's really dumb. You ever had a nightmare where it's like nothing actually scary happens, but it's just like the aura and the flavor of a nightmare?
Sure.
And then you're just anticipating something, but it never happens. Then you just wake up and you're just like, damn, I stressed out for no reason. That sucks.
I very rarely, I don't even really recall having like the nightmare. Like I'm being killed. Like, I don't think that's, I mean, maybe it's happened, but those are not the kinds of dreams I have. They're like something deeper.
Yeah, well, you're
endemic to my anxiety.
When you're a kid, you have those dreams, like those, like you're being chased by something, or like it's I don't know. It's more horror oriented. But like,
right, well, that's where the tickly monster comes from. My recurring dream as a kid,
which
I've talked about in the past.
Dream?
Yeah, there was a guy with a mustache. So
I feel like the ancient lore is being. This is like a Gandalf when he's searching around.
Yeah.
To find stuff out about the ring. This is
a great Moriarty story just because it involves so much weird stuff. Where in the kitchen in my house growing up, we had like all of these like decorative plates, and one of them was like a 19th century old timey plate with a dude with a mustache, and he had like this curly mustache. And for some reason, this frightened me, but I never said anything about it. So I would have nightmares where this guy called the tickly monster would come into my crib or my bed or whatever it was and just tickle me. And I hate being tickled to this day. Dagan will know, like, that was what my siblings used to do to me to torture me. They would like, Dagan would like, put my legs over my head and start tickling my arms or whatever. And I couldn't move and I would like start crying because I hated it so much. And I still hate being tickled. Like anyone knows, like, don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
I grab me with some authority, no soft touching that could possibly tickle me. So this man used to visit me for years, and that was like my recurring nightmare as a kid. But what was funny about it, and this is the thing that really tickles part of the pun Dagan, is it's like I never said that plate that was just there staring at me for years in the kitchen as we ate dinner, I never said that was the tickly monster. So they never took it down. Like no one had any idea that was him. They knew I had these. They knew I had these dreams, but they never. So like I just had this thing looking at me every morning, and like when I was eating breakfast, and like every day when I was eating dinner and stuff. So.
Yeah, you just tortured yourself,
right?
Basically.
I don't know why I didn't say anything, but
do you think you were going to be made fun of? Do you think it was just going to be like, he's scared of the plate, loser?
Yeah, probably. I mean,
yeah,
the youngest of four, I was always getting teased anyway. I don't know. So those were my recurring. That's like and honestly, those were like the scariest, most violent in quote nightmares that I've ever probably had, and they felt violent. I'll tell you, man.
Yeah.
Why is the tickle thing is weird? Like, what is that all about? I can understand pain. Like, oh, you're in pain. We're letting you know something's wrong.
Right.
Tickling seems like something that's fucked up. Like it's not supposed to be this way. Because I know some people that are not ticklish at all, but dude, I'll like curl into a ball and like die if someone tickles me. I hate it. I hate it.
It's so fascinating.
Are you guys ticklish?
Probably. Yeah, I think so.
I am less ticklish than I used to be, but I still am. Like Holly will touch my foot and it will, I'll have a little reaction, but
yeah, under my arms, like this area, and it's not. I can do it to myself. It doesn't matter. I don't know what that's all about either. But like under my arms and like my midriff.
Yeah, you can't.
My spare tire. Oh, not good.
Yeah. You can't tickle yourself, which is interesting.
Yeah,
like, you can't do it. Like I think it's literally impossible. It has to be somebody else doing it. But I hate it too. Like I'm not gonna go to a anaphylactic shock from it or anything. But like I really loathe not being in control. It's the same thing my dad used to do to me. He used to like sometimes he would grab my arm and like push on it and like make my fingers. You know what I mean? Like push on the like a reflex. And he would go like, "You're not in control." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I hate how existential this feels. Don't do this to me." But I hate tickling too. It's fucking annoying. And then like I've been in situations where I've like been with partners or whatever, and they'll tickle me, and I'll lose control of my arm, and then I'll hit them, and then it'll be like, ow, and I'm like, listen, I'm not responsible for this.
Yeah,
Straight
don't
up.
do it.
Don't do this.
Boys,
I
I do
do-
discover
go ahead.
the core of maybe some critical problems. You know, Chris's dad taunting him with the lack of control. Colin and the tickling monster. Maybe
Dude, my
these are
whole-
the roots of the problems.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. These last few years, I've figured basically all of it out. You know, like where all my weird shit comes from, I know where it's all from childhood stuff, no doubt. No doubt. Some innocuous, some serious, but it is indeed true that you are who you are. Getting tickled is the worst. I do find it funny when you go to the involuntary kind of response, the hammer on the knee at the doctor.
Mhm.
Like when they do it to me, I think it's funny. I'm like, that's crazy. What the fuck is that all about?
Right.
You know, your leg just like swings. I'm like that's
I haven't
fucking
experienced that in fucking years. They still
yeah.
do
They
that as a
still
doctor?
the little mallet. Pop.
Why
Yeah.
don't they do that? I can't remember the last time they did that to me.
It's for reflexes, I guess, but I don't know. I like what I wonder what the bad response is. Like nothing happens.
Yeah, the bad response is nothing happens or your leg falls off.
Right.
You know,
Right.
those are the two, only two other possibilities.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to be here with you guys today. It's Thursday here where we're recording. It's getting a little colder here in Virginia. We had a nice run of days though. It was like in the 60s. It was pretty nice. But I hope you guys are well out there too. It's good to be here with my boys as we are every week. And you can get this show, our show, Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, 3 days early and ad-free over on patreon.com/laststandmedia. Like more than 13,000 of you do. We appreciate you very much. We could not do it without you. Your $5 subscription or whatever you'd like to give a month, but $5 is a sweet spot. It's very much appreciated. That will give you early ad-free access to this show and all the shows in our network, access to Sacred Symbols Plus, the supplement we do each and every week for this show that lives on Patreon, deep dives, interviews, game discussions, and so on and so forth, and more. Ability to submit your inquiries to the show on the news feed each week. So Sacred Symbols Plus episodes recently, we did Sacred Cross Duke. That was fun. People really enjoyed that episode. I sat down with David Jaffe recently as well and talked to him about a bunch of stuff. I'm sitting down with Jez Corden from the Xbox 2 podcast. And what is the Windows Central is the website. So kind of a big Xbox content creator. I want to talk to him specifically about what's going on now that the games are kind of migrating over. We're going to talk about more of them in this show. And it seems like we're going to have more to talk about in the weeks and months to come as well. So we'll get some stuff on the record there too. And Matt Vigo wrote into us on Patreon on the news feed in the thread we put there each week. He says, "Hey, Colin, any plans to build bridges with other creators in the near future? One of the highlights of LSM last year was seeing you and Mystic make a couple of pieces of content together. We already have a lot of voices just in LSM, of course, but it's always exciting whenever you bring in others from the outside. Keep on keeping on." Yeah, I have a couple things lined up already, apart from Jez, that I think will be great and I think people will enjoy. But with only one episode of Sacred Plus a week, I don't know how many interviews I'll end up doing because there are other things we want to cover too. Like there are no games out right now really that are like relevant or current, but once those start to come out, we're going to be fully occupied, I think, on the show, just doing games coverage and stuff like that. But yeah, keep an eye out for more interviews upcoming, beginning with Jez, and we'll have Jaffe back and stuff like that as well. Merch, laststandmedia.store, t-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, hats, whatever. Free shipping on all stickers here in these United States. Patrick Gallagher wrote it on Patreon and said, "Dear Sacred Boys, I'm writing this from the hospital where my wife and I just had a son. As you may or may not know, skin-to-skin contact is very important for newborns, so they recommend you wear something that provides easy access to flesh. As I scoured my closet for the best option, what did I settle on but my Sacred Symbols full zip hoodie? So you should know that one of the very first things my newborn son touched was the sweet Honduran blend of polyester and cotton affixed with your elegant and vaguely blasphemous logo. I'm sure our baby boy will be standing down with the best of them in no time. Blessings and much gratitude to the whole Last Stand team for many years of entertainment. Here's to many more." The Sacred Symbols logo is only truly blasphemous if you think that stained glass can only be associated with like Catholicism.
Yeah.
Which is fair. They're definitely closely related. But I think we can do a little, we can spoof it a little bit without being too offensive. I don't think it's very offensive. I don't want to be too blasphemous.
Yeah, no, it's a medium of, I don't know, people do stained glass stuff all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I knew people. I dated people who like knew how to make stained glass, which to me was like mesmerizing. I was like, what the fuck? This is something I didn't think that was something you could just do in your house. But apparently it's incredibly easy. If you
It's
have the rules, but
it's a really I love stained glass. I think stained glass is like amazing. One of beautiful.
It looks awesome.
Beautiful. We did. God, I wonder if the guy's listening still. I don't remember his name, so he can reach out if he is. But I might have even still been in California. But we had like I don't know if you remember this, Dustin. Like a very brief run of stained glass logos that someone did for us, like real stained glass, but sold them basically through his store. Right? And it was like I don't even know if we made. I think we made some money on it, but it would be cool to do that again. Like the real stained glass logo. That'd be fucking comical, actually, to really sell a few more of those, since that's the where Sacred Symbols looks best. I think. I don't know if what percentage of people do you think read the logo of Sacred Symbols as stained glass, because that is what it is. But I wonder how many people see it that way.
I bet it's lost on most people.
Yeah, it probably is.
It's like
because logos just become the logo at some point. You don't even really study them.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that's just the thing they settled on or whatever. You don't really think too much about it. Like I lasted so long without even realizing about the arrow and fucking the FedEx logo.
Oh yeah.
I felt like a moron because it's literally unavoidably there.
Yeah, it's like all you see when you know it's there.
Yeah, it completely ruins it in some sense. But yeah, no, I would wager that if we didn't talk about it as regularly as we did, because it's not, and to be fair, it doesn't come up that often, but we mentioned that it's a stained glass logo before. And I don't think if we ever said anything about it, I think like 90% of people wouldn't notice.
There are other logos that Dagan made too. I used one of them a few times on, I don't remember what it was, like maybe say early episodes of Sacred Symbols Plus or something, where it was like a more symmetrical stained glass, almost like a sun with the logos on it.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, and it was a really cool. I ended up choosing this one, but there are others that we could break out at some point too. I don't know that I like iconography that never changes. So I like just stick with it, like the IBM logo, for instance, or we see there's that obsolete Sony circulates it once in a while. It's like that in the late 70s, early 80s, Sony did a design contest, like to redesign the logo. And the entire thing is about how like the redesign, here are some of the redesigns that we chose, but we actually just stuck with the same logo because we like it. It's just like, yeah, at some point you just kind of have your thing. The apple for Apple. Even getting rid of the colors in the apple, I thought was kind of lame when they, when I was a kid, it was like a gay pride apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that might be why they got rid of it, because maybe people were reading it like that. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. All I know is that like it reminds me a little bit of like the PlayStation logo, like with the P and the S behind it, like kind of like reverse extruded. Just like that looks so good that like I can't imagine that ever being redesigned with any real purpose or with any real sense of being better than the original version. And remember, there was that document that showed all the other choices that they could have made.
Right.
And some of them were pretty cool, but like none of them, like this is clearly the best one.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder what we would think if they did choose another one. We wouldn't have known any better. Because they did seem to have chosen the obviously good one.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. What else is going on here? Oh, Patrick, congratulations on your new child. Glad we could be in the mix. Please leave nice reviews for our podcast on review service or on your podcast services if you can. Nice star ratings, whatever, Spotify, iTunes, etc. You can leave comments on the video. You can follow us on YouTube. Do whatever the fuck it is you want to do. Also, SideQuest is back. This was our Last Stand's long defunct video essay series that I began in 2018.
That's right.
James Pies wrote in. It's actually older than Sacred Symbols. James Pies wrote in, said, "Happy Super Bowl week, fellas." Video, actually, then it must come from 2017, actually. Yeah. "Happy Super Bowl week, fellas," he writes. "Video essays are back, or are they? Colin, that was an excellent video on PlayStation's live service, Boondoggle. Can the people look forward to more insightful YouTube pieces in the near future? I imagine these things are hefty endeavors. Thank you for all that you do. I'll hang up and listen." Yeah, I think we'll do more. I don't consider these really perks, though, to like subscribing on Patreon or whatever. So I don't want to promise them as like anything that will be recurring in some predictable way. But I already have the idea for the next one. I think we'll do it in the next couple of weeks. And it is a big lift. It took me all day, basically one full day, to write and record the VO. But I didn't do anything else. So it's so much easier than when I used to edit them. Because that's the worst part. I hated it. I hated editing.
It's well done. I watched it. I liked the flow of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the who edited it? It was somebody in the community, right?
Yeah. Ian 616 Entertainment. He's been on Sacred Symbols Plus a few times. He does wrestling stuff, horror stuff. He has his own YouTube channel and Patreon and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's very flexible where I just was thinking of him as I had been marinating, like just writing a side quest video. And it was actually, I don't want to say so secretive, but something I did so from the hip that Dustin didn't even know about it until I sent him the video, right?
I knew that you were thinking about it.
Right. But you didn't know I
doing one,
executed on anything until I sent you the first version of the video.
Yeah.
It all happened very quickly. Like basically, and to Ian's credit, I mean, he turned it around really quickly, like way more quickly than I expected or thought he would, in a very high quality way, and totally understood the assignment. And I told him, and I mean this, it's like, it's better than I even thought it was going to be. Not that I thought it was going to be bad, but I thought we would have to work into a cadence of like, this is what I'm kind of expecting. Here are some notes, but there really were no notes. The big notes were like, we added some subtitling to, or like some chyrons to cite some sources for videos we took from like Kind of Funny during the Shuhei interview. And I had a flub in the script that I didn't even realize was there. And I had him just cut like one word to make a sentence sound better. And other than that, we really had, and he used footage of like the leaked Spider-Man game. And I'm like, we can't, absolutely cannot do that. But it's so, like his instructions were just use official content, like trailers, gameplay trailers,
Right.
cinematics if you want, whatever. So I thought he did a really good job. And to his credit, like I just wrote it on a Tuesday and I recorded it and then I stitched it together in like an assembly and just put it to like cut all the flubs and all that, put it together. And then I was like, and I just emailed him. I'm like, here's like a 26-minute piece of audio and the script. Do you have any interest in trying to revive SideQuest? And he emailed me back and said yes. And then the next day he had the video as it's basically ready to go now. So we'll definitely do another one. I felt complacent for a while. This is what I said on Twitter when I shared it. I was just like, the podcasts are doing well. The company's doing great. I feel kind of lazy. Like I want to do something and I miss writing. So yeah, that was fun. I appreciate Chris, I'm glad you liked it. A lot of people liked it. I'm glad. I have no expectation that these are going to do crazy traffic or whatever. It's really just a way to say something and put something out in the wild. That's maybe more shareable or more interesting to some people that don't like 5-hour podcasts. So, which I can understand completely. So James, thanks for writing in, and to all that wrote in about SideQuest. You guys talk amongst yourself for a minute. I got to go get my water in the bedroom. I left it there. I'm a little parched.
Yeah.
All right
then.
Well, what do we talk about now, Chris?
I don't know. I got no idea at all.
I was just thinking like this morning, I was like, I don't stretch at all. Like surely I'm at the age now, like I wake up and I probably should stretch a little bit. Wow, I was so fast.
That was not quick. That was not slow enough to even warrant mentioning. What was that? That was so swift.
Oh, that was quick, you think?
That was amazingly quick. That was like,
it was just on my bed. It was in my bedroom on like a TV stand. And
I was expecting like maybe like 40 seconds to a minute. That was
what was it, like 15 seconds?
That was 10 to 15 seconds.
10 to 15 seconds, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to disappoint you. All right.
He was talking about how he's at the age where he should be stretching, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's definitely true. I should stretch more than that. I was stretching a lot for when I was doing the boxing thing, and immediately stopped after I didn't have to.
Yeah, I don't stretch at all, which is bad. You know,
it's very bad. Yeah,
great.
Like because I work out every day. I don't stretch. I'm not very pliable these days. All right. Caleb Engel wrote in. Let's get into a few random topics before we get into some game discussions. We have a lot of things to talk about this week.
Yeah.
Caleb says, hello, fellas. Colin, I hope your tendon. So a lot of people wrote in about this. My tendinitis in my right arm. He says, hopes it heals up soon. I turned 40 in 2024 as well. And over the past few years, I've been trying to be more intentional about my health. But of course, in classic fashion, the moment I start making progress, my body decides it has other plans. I developed tendinitis in October after adding weighted pull-ups to my routine. As a pickup and delivery driver, full rest isn't an option, so my healing process has been as slow as the PS3 install screen, frustrating beyond belief. I know it sucks, but seriously, give yourself as much time as needed to heal. I made the mistake of thinking I was good after 2 months, jumped back into pull-ups and instantly regretted it. Now I have no clue how long this is going to take. Compression sleeves help a little, but time and rest are the only real solutions. That or a time machine. Take care, my friend, and remember, this is just another checkpoint in the never-ending game of getting older. Well, at least until you roll credits. Well, I'll roll credits one day, no doubt. We all will. Thank you. So many people wrote in about this. Some people had advice. Some people told me I shouldn't be resting because that's bad advice. I'm like, I don't know about that. That might be true. I have no idea. Some people said that the 40-pound free weights I'm using to curl are too heavy. That sounds like too heavy even for more experienced, stronger people. That seems so crazy to me. 40-pound curls are too, like, that's obviously what did it. When I went from 30 to 40 pounds, I started fucking my arms up bad, I think. Yeah. But they started bulging almost, like, for me, right? Again, I'm not like a big person, but this is what I was lamenting so much. And I gotta be honest with you guys. I'm bummed. I'm like really bummed about it. I was enjoying the process. I was enjoying seeing the results of like my arms getting bigger and my chest getting a little bigger and stuff like that. And I know Mike is totally over and tired of me talking about it, so I have no one to really lament to anymore. But it bothers me like every day that I can't lift weights. I was really liking the process. It made me feel better. So now I've done cardio for many, many years, and I do cardio still to this day, but it's like I miss that element that I had introduced. And I find it quite depressing because it was the first time I've always had really muscular legs because I played hockey most of my life. So maintaining that with cardio and running and all that is neither here nor there for me. It's like, that's kind of what I'm used to. But seeing my girlish arms start to get some definition was quite tantalizing. And it was the first time I'd ever really done anything like that, where I intentionally set out to alter my body in some way and be back to square one when I get back into it. So, but people have been writing in about muscle memory and that your muscles will return quicker and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it took so much effort. Oh my God. Caleb, thank you for writing in. No more lifting for the rest of the month for me. Mike Held wrote in and said, hey, CDC, Colin mentioned on the recent episode of Constellation that it would be cool to own a lock of George Washington's hair. So I ask you this. If a collector came to you wishing to sell you a lock of Washington's hair, but it turned out to actually be a lock of his pubes, would you buy it? Walk away and discuss, offer the seller more money. Inquire about Lincoln's beard, in quotes. I ask you gentlemen to wax poetic on this most puzzling moral quandary. Thank you and good day, sirs. Hair's hair.
I thought it might sweeten the deal, actually. For
yeah, right. I mean, it would be more novel.
Right.
These are George Washington's pubic hairs. There's something tantalizing about that. For sure. There's nothing sexual about it. It's just interesting.
Right.
Because a lock of his hair would be more common. That was something that was like given away to, during the time every so often, like in a letter or something like that. So those things are going to be floating around, but the pubes, who knows? And then we can extract the DNA out of it and clone George Washington.
Clone another freak. Did he
another
have like
6'3" freakazoid?
Did he have like lead teeth or something?
I think people say that, yeah, and like wood at some point. Yeah,
so he's just like sucking on lead.
Lead,
he was like genuinely like a lead poisoned psycho in the woods, like murdering British people.
It's awesome.
It's insane.
It's good shit. Love it. Yeah, I'd invest in the hair. Dustin, am I right? Hair is the hair in this regard.
I understand some people would be off put by being pubes, but I think from your perspective, I mean, it's George Washington nonetheless. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It could be his toenail clippings, and you'd probably be.
That's a little weird. Yeah.
I mean, for the right price.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the price would be lower.
Certainly.
Yeah. Just to have it's like a relic. I mean, this is like getting into like a Catholic relics. Like I have the fucking nail clipping of Jesus Christ. I have the nail clipping of one of the thieves that was also crucified next to Jesus Christ. And then I'm going to build a whole church around it.
Right, yeah. Pontius Pilate's eyelash.
Right, exactly.
And no one can ever look at it.
Right.
To verify
Don't touch it.
We just have it. Don't
Yeah.
ask.
Trust me.
I do wonder with all the relics. Like I always thought this in Catholicism. Like, there's like Mike had just brought this up, and we were talking about it for some reason. It's like there are X amount of churches that claim to have one of the nails of that, like nail Jesus in, for instance.
Right.
But there are only 3? I guess technically there would only be 3 nails, and I wonder if any of them are real. Like, are any of them the real thing? The crown of thorns, or a thorn from the crown of thorns. Like, are any of them real? That would be fucking sick. The Shroud of Turin, of course, everyone always talks about, but
Would be interesting. I guess my feeling is like you wouldn't know that there's any significance in that thing until like way later anyway. So like, what is the likelihood that these would even be saved in the first place? It's kind of
that is a good point. Like, would they have just discarded them or whatever?
Yeah, because from their perspective, they're just like, we just crucified some guy. Like they probably crucified like 4 other people the next like couple of days. So like, do they reuse the nails? Because they brought them down.
Yeah, right.
So, like I don't know.
Yeah,
Actually,
how did they get them off?
I-
Do they just rip them off? The
I
nails
don't
stay
know.
in, probably.
It's
Ooh.
interesting. It's an interesting question. That would be super interesting if one of those is authentic. But also, like, I have a hard time understanding like why they would even think. Who would even be at liberty to even make such a decision to save them in the first place in a way that's verifiable?
You could argue that one of Jesus's followers might go
Yeah,
snatch it up or something.
that's the thing. It's like there's
It's like
a lot
getting
of
a
ways.
set list at a concert.
Yeah. Right.
It's exactly the same. Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, I guess it would be somewhat unprovable because even if you carbon dated it to the appropriate times, like how would you know and all the rest. But it is one of those things that I always think about because like apart from the supernaturalism of like what God is and Jesus and the Trinity and everything he was saying and doing or whatever, there was a man named Jesus Christ crucified on a cross with a crown of thorns on his head. Like those things existed that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so like even if he was just a crazy person, like in one interpretation of it or whatever,
No, he's
like that, those relics would still exist. Yeah, it would be it's just something I think about because I think a lot of like kings in Europe claim to have pieces of the crown and other splinters of the cross.
Right.
It's an awesome idea.
I was watching a video about the Shroud of Turin, which is really interesting because for a long time they thought it was a hoax, like they carbon dated and it was wrong or wrong time frame. But in the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years, they've done more research and they're like, actually, this cloth is from the 1st century.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I've seen that. How there's like a swinging effect with that story, where now it's like back towards.
What was the Shroud of Turin again? I don't.
It was the
remember.
shroud that like covered Jesus in the tomb,
and it has like almost like a photo negative image of a man imbued in the cloth that they have no fucking clue how it's in the cloth. Like they still don't know. They're like, we have no idea how this image is imprinted on this cloth, especially from this era.
Maybe if he really did rise from the dead, I mean, it could be that like.
That's
the spirit went up,
That's the argument. I mean, I don't know. I you guys know in the audience knows I am a believer, but I'm not necessarily a believer in that cloth.
Right? Yeah, sure.
I don't. I guess this is a much more philosophical thought, but I'm like, I don't know what the purpose of leaving behind anything like that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. It's funny because with the New Testament, I don't have problem. I believe the New Testament a lot more than I believe the Old Testament. So I'm not really. It's not a matter of like. There's a lot of events that happen in the New Testament that happened for sure, like John the Baptist and like that stuff all happened, and obviously the founding of the early church, which becomes the Catholic Church. These are all real historical things, and St. Peter and basically the Romans fucking extinguishing a lot of these people and all the rest. And so like a lot of it's real. It's a matter of like all the supernaturalism, obviously, that I think people take, feeding, people loaves and fishes and all these kinds of things. And
whether or not it's allegorical or literal or whatever.
Right. Exactly. And so like, because the Old Testament is so clearly an allegory, if you wanted to be consistent, it's like, why wouldn't you see this as this? But this is, through Josephus and others, it's like, we know that a lot of this stuff did definitely happen. And so it's just, I'm so fascinated by, that's what makes Christianity so interesting.
Yeah.
In my opinion, is that it was founded not unlike Islam, I guess, founded at a time where like there was some, and it's even more and by the time Islam is founded, but like there's some historical record, like there's some people paying attention. But then you realize it's like people writing this shit down were often being told by someone who was told. But I always think that's why I'm not really into ancient history ultimately, because I'm like, I feel like you take some things for granted, like we don't really know. There's like one historian that said something or whatever. That's fascinating. I love this shit.
He was just doing a little trolling.
Yeah, just a little trolling.
The one historian is just like, I
mean, imagine. I always think about this. It's like, I guess it's a little sacrilegious, but I don't mean it like that. I'm culturally Catholic. I'm not a disrespecter of religion at all, or Christianity at all. But imagine like Jesus Christ was like a charlatan, like in reality, right? And he dies, and maybe there's a heaven, maybe there's not. He doesn't see it, but it's like, do you have any idea what you've done?
Right, like
it's like that's fucking crazy. Like it's crazy.
That's also interesting. That's like the thing. It's like it's all interesting. I love the lore of all of this.
Me too. Reading about it, I took some classes in college about early Christianity and like the founding of the church and stuff like that, and it is really interesting. All the rules.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a fascination with religion. I'm actually listening to. I was talking about The Rest Is History, that podcast. I'm listening to a 5-part podcast about the Reformation, and it's really, really good.
I like the stuff about shellfish just because I actually happen to agree with it.
Yeah,
it's just like, yeah, good.
Yeah, fuck them.
Did you get to the 99 Theses?
Yeah, is it 90? It's 95, right?
Oh, 95. Yeah.
Yeah. I know all of this stuff like in broad strokes, but like getting really, this is nerdy. I mean, everyone's like, shut the fuck up. Let's talk about video games. But I've always been really fascinated by the Reformation, specifically because there were people before the Reformation that were doing this shit, but were ignored, basically, or like were just kind of cast out, like Jan Hus, the Hussites in Czechoslovakia, that were like kind of anti-clerical, and Wycliffe, or whatever that guy's name is in England, that Wycliffe John Wycliffe, I think, that was like an early like what they call a proto reformer or whatever. And then suddenly Martin Luther like comes in with the 95 Theses and all that, and really like blows it all up. But there were like these people that did it before him, and it's actually kind of interesting to think about those people too, and how Catholicism had like a stranglehold for like 1,400 years on Christianity, except for Orthodoxy and stuff like that. But yeah, so good shit. And I was saying this to Micah, and I was actually talking to my uncle. We were out at dinner. I was like, on Long Island, and I don't know if you feel like this too, Chris, because I don't know if it was the same in the city, but there were obviously Protestant people, but it was so Catholic and so Jewish that like, I just thought that was reality when I was growing up. I'm like, oh, everyone's Catholic. And then there's like some people that are like Presbyterian or some shit, but like everyone's Catholic, and if you're not Catholic, you're Jewish. And that was literally that was literally it. And it wasn't until I left the Northeast, even Boston. I mean, Boston's just like that too. And then even when I left Northeast, I was like, oh, no one's Catholic. Like,
yeah, I remember kind of assuming. Well, I also just went to Catholic school, so everybody that I knew, just even if they weren't Catholic, they were, I don't know, they were there. So that I don't know if I really thought too much about whether or not somebody was or wasn't. I just kind of figured like, oh, I think at a certain point I thought Jewish was just like a different kind of Catholic. You know what I mean? And in some sense, that's kind of not. It's
like a different kind of Christian. It's like half Christian.
Yeah, and so to me, I was just like, I don't know. You might be Protestant. I don't even know what the fuck that means. To be perfectly honest with you, even still to this day, I don't know what the fuck that means.
What means? What means?
Protestant, like, the different sects of like the different like granular different specificities of like the types of Christian. Like, it's all Christian to me. Like, I don't know. It's like competitive, casual, and hardcore. I guess it's like I guess like Catholic is kind of, what would you describe Catholic as in terms of genre?
Like Protestantism rose out of Catholics being too crazy, right? And too hardcore. So like, this is really the blood of Christ. This is really the body of Christ. Right.
So like, Catholic is competitive ranked Christianity. Protestant is like casual, like social playlist, I guess.
Depends on the sect.
It really depends.
Right. Yeah.
some are more loosey goosey, and others are like hardcore Bible.
Yeah,
Like
That's-
100% is the authority.
that's kind of the thing for like, because I went to Catholic school, but I also went to Catholic school like in the city, and so to me it was just like we had a very like we were taught a bunch of that stuff. But we were also like it wasn't like in Mississippi or something where like you were only taught creationism and that was it. It's like we learned about creation, then we did learn about evolution and Big Bang, and like it was kind of like this weird kind of, here's what's available to us. Make up whatever, believe whatever. Like it didn't seem, there weren't nuns going around with like rulers beating us up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even in some sense, I kind of, my experience with Catholicism was always like kind of loose. It was kind of like chill, and they didn't really care that much.
Yeah, like Dustin's a Protestant.
I genuinely do not know the differences between these things. Not to be
Protestant is
genuinely.
Catholicism is just the original, and some people would take umbrage with this, but it's really nothing to take umbrage with. It's the original strand of Christianity, and then everything splinters off from it. So like Orthodoxy ultimately splinters off in like the Russia and the eastern part of Europe.
Sure.
And then the Protestants split off because, starting with Martin Luther and John Calvin and those guys, because they were all like, Catholicism has a bunch of rules. You have to be a male celibate priest, and you communicate with God, and the masses are in Latin. No one can understand them, and it's this supernatural sort of thing that you're like, you get to participate in. But the Protestants, the core Protestant argument, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dustin, is that like anyone can have a relationship with God, and that you don't need to do it through a priest, and you don't need to do it in a Latin mass, and you don't need to do it in this ancient way, and that the body of Christ isn't in the host, and that the blood of Christ isn't in the wine, and that like it's an anti-elitist movement.
Right.
To like the Bible wasn't even translated into English, I think, until the 1400s, right? Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And German too, which is obviously where Martin Luther comes. Anyway, everyone's like, what the fuck are you guys talking about?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I love this stuff. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting conversation. I don't know.
All right. What denomination are you, Dustin?
I am Reformed Presbyterian.
Reformed Presbyterian. What does that mean? What does it mean to be Reformed Presbyterian?
What does it mean to be Reformed Presbyterian? I would say it's what I was saying earlier, that like the Reformed Presbyterian is very much like the Bible is the authority above anything else, as far as like where we get doctrine from.
Right. That's an important thing with Catholicism, Chris, is that like there's a whole litany of writings in Catholicism and rule sets and stuff that are not from the Bible, that like, or like are tenuously kind of associated with the Bible. Like,
yeah, it's like arbitrary, like a random religious leaders, like
right. Like I know it, and they were talking about it. Like a big thing with Luther was, and early on was like saying like there's nothing that says that priests can't have sex, for instance. Why are we doing this? Like to what end? And that's why Protestant ministers and whatever can get married typically and have kids and shit.
Yeah. But
you would never see a Catholic priest do that.
Yeah. Like the extrapolations from the rule sets are not enshrined, basically.
Right. I always bring up purgatory. Like that's a Catholic thing that's like made up, gleaned out of parts of the Bible, but not literal.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. No one talks about purgatory on the other side, but
yeah, this is purgatory.
It might be. That is a part of at least one tract of a Catholic theory.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Crazed Raccoon wrote in and said, "Howdy, fellas. The philosophical discussion last week about another viewer's venture into games journalism got me thinking about my own life, and I was wondering if you guys had any perspective for me. I currently work as an aerospace engineer, making a decent living at 27. I don't love my job, but I also don't hate it. A couple of years ago, I decided that I wanted to begin learning computer science with a dream of getting into game development, so I started taking classes. The thing is, between working 45 hours a week studying and developing, I end up with very little free time. I don't get to game much anymore, and I also haven't gotten to spend as much time with friends and family as I would have liked. Is this grind worth it? Should I just make peace with the comfortable life I've already obtained for myself? And in an ideal world, I end up working as a game developer once I finish this degree, but the odds of that working out seem slim to none." I picked this inquiry. I don't know how you guys feel about this, because when I worked in San Francisco and I would walk home from work or walk to the train, I would always walk by these like big skyscrapers. I worked on like near the Embarcadero on the water, and you would walk down towards Market Street where like all of the business people work. And I'd look up at these desks and I'd see these guys like pouring out of their buildings. And I'm like, man, these guys probably make, $100,000 a year, $125,000 a year pushing papers, and they get to leave at 5 and they have a good life. And I would I would actually trade what I was doing to do that, to have some sort of stability and a little bit more money and something more predictable. But I also feel like the grass is always greener, and that no matter what you choose, you're going to regret, or not regret necessarily, but be wistful for another direction, or think about the what ifs and the could be's and all of the rest. It says you're an aerospace engineer. You probably make 6 figures at 27, which is great. And it's a matter of, you sound hungry, which is good, but I would also kind of enjoy what you have. If you're spending so much time developing or working towards this goal that you don't even play the games anymore, I mean, I don't know. I just totally understand. It reminded me of those walk homes and like the always wanting something that you don't have, but not necessarily being thankful for what you do have. And I don't want to dissuade you, but it's just a perspective to consider, in my opinion. You have anything you want to say, Dustin?
Yeah, this is tough because you want to be fulfilled in your work, and of course, following dreams is a validating part of life. But as you were saying, Colin, it's like, man, you are most likely, but maybe not. I mean, making, as he said, a decent living at 27, and already don't have a lot of free time. My suggestion to people is always that if you want to get into a different line of work, that you kind of have to moonlight it while you're providing for yourself at the same time. And that is definitely a grind, and not fun necessarily. But if you find yourself like maximizing yourself out, then you're probably not going to end up being successful at anything if you are burning yourself out through both your job, studying, and not being able to see your family. So it's key to find that balance. It's mainly a matter of, like you said, Colin, in that the grass is always greener. I think it's in The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, that book that I absolutely love, that is like, life is about, you're always going to have problems and stressful things in your life. It's just figuring out which ones you are okay dealing with. So your life is still going to be honestly, becoming a game developer is probably going to make your life way more stressful and have way more problems. But if those are problems you like better than your aerospace engineer, then maybe that is worth pursuing. I guess if you are knowing that it's like, okay, you're going to have to grind for a bunch of years to figure out how to do this. And even then, you're probably not going to be the best at it. So you're going to get a job somewhere where you're, at this point in time, very likely to get laid off or not get a job at all. So there's a lot to consider here, from your perspective specifically.
Yeah, it's about how badly you want it. Dagan deals with that. I mean, Dagan loves the game of animation so much and has been in it for almost 30 years, but it comes at a great cost. Like, it's not stable. It's very unpredictable. He could be making more money in just doing marketing or something than he is doing this, but he loves the game. If you love my big problem is just like, why did you go to school for aerospace engineering? Why did you waste all this time to get these skills? And I don't know.
Well, sometimes you realize you don't like it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
You know?
It's just a bummer to like know that you invested yourself into something that's so difficult to do. And it just seems so stable to me, but I understand. That's why I'm saying, like, I get it. Cause like, I think the grass is always greener. I just think it is. You have anything you want to add, Chris?
No, I mean, I would say that's a really stable position. That is a good career, especially at that age. And so my recommendation is like, look, if you want to do game development, I don't even like, I have that hunger too. Like, I get it. But to me, I would be like, I would never want to be like, I would never want to work at a studio. If I was to be a game developer, I would be like, all right, I'm going to develop my own indie game and see, off on the side, I might work on it for like maybe a couple hours a week. Then maybe some weeks I have more time to do it. Maybe I'll grind some more out that way. Maybe I'm doing that right now and you guys don't know. But I just think if I was in that position, I feel like I would focus more on like, you know what? if I'm going to succeed at this, I want all of the success to be mine. So I would aim for like not necessarily employment at some studio where again you're more likely to get laid off and then you're just kind of on your feet and off on your ass and then you're fucked. But kind of put what little free time you do have into maybe learning how to build something on your own. It's easier than ever, and it will continue to be easier as we continue on and technology gets better to make your own games. There are indie games coming out right now by like 1 or 2 people that like in 2008 would have been not possible, And so I would say like, look, yeah, if you have that hunger, give it a shot, do some stuff on your own, even if it sucks, even if it's, gray box and not complete, learn the skills, learn to do it, build something that you want to build. And then maybe, I don't know, see where that goes. And then if it succeeds, and then if it succeeds in any real meaningful capacity, all that success is yours, as opposed to, oh, I'm going to quit my job and then work in QA at, I don't know, Sega and then get laid off immediately. It doesn't seem like a worthy trade-off in that sense. But I get the hunger and wanting to try something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's possible. It's just a matter of like, you're not going to have a lot of time to do other things. And you have to determine whether or not that's worth it. But I wouldn't necessarily trade that stability. Because the stability is what's going to allow you to do this in the first place. In my view.
Yeah, I always, as a very risk-averse person, although I've taken very risky moves in my career, in my life, but I've done it very, very calculated, in very calculated ways. Like I always kind of get scared for people when they have a good thing or like a seemingly good, solid thing. Like aerospace is going to be a great place to be. I mean, obviously. So consider that, but I've also obviously follow your heart too. It's funny. I read feedback on our most recent game, Tribreaker, at Lilymo, where people are like, if they want to have better success, they need to make like more modern, newer kinds of games. And it's like, I can't speak for Barry. I think he's in the same boat, but for me anyway, it's like, I actually don't want to do that. Like, I really have no desire to work on a different kind of game. I want to make either just retro old games or nothing in that regard. So I have like a very limited desire to even do it myself. And the only reason that I do it is because, and I just write the games and kind of conceive of them, the stories and the characters and stuff. And so it's not like a deep level of work like Barry's doing at all. But the only reason I do it is because it materialized in front of me. And it's like actually the kind of games I would want to work on as opposed to making more relevant, deeper things. Because I realized not only do I not really want to do it, but because it would be really time consuming and quite complex to my life. My life's already kind of busy as it is, really busy. All right. Crazed Raccoon, good luck to you. You'll make the right decision for you. Only you will know. Only you'll know what the right decision is. Okay. Let's get into some game news. Smaller news items here. Let It Linger wrote in because recently Entertainment Weekly posted a little story about Caitlin Dever, the actress playing Abby in The Last of Us on HBO in its second season. Let It Linger wrote in and said, "Hey, Sacred Crew, how do you feel about Neil Druckmann's comments on why Abby isn't buff in The Last of Us show? It seems like kind of a cop-out in my opinion, and I'm not sure if I like the decision. Obviously, people were upset about the Ellie casting, but now another weird casting choice. Why do you think they are going this route with a TV adaptation?" So what he's referencing is an Entertainment Weekly story, like I said, called Why Caitlin Dever as Abby Didn't Need to Bulk Up for The Last of Us. And Neil Druckmann tells them that it didn't play a role. He says, quote, "We need someone to really capture the essence of those characters. We don't value as much do they look exactly like the character with their eyebrows or their nose or their body, whatever it is. It's not nowhere on the priority list, but it's below a bunch of other things that we consider," end quote. And then Druckmann later says, quote, "We would have struggled to find someone as good as Caitlin to play this role. In the game, you have to play both characters and we need them to play differently. We needed Ellie to feel smaller and kind of maneuver around, and Abby was meant to play more like Joel in that she's almost like a brute in the way she can physically manhandle certain things. That doesn't play as big of a role in this version of the story because there's not as much violent action moment to moment. It's more about the drama. I'm not saying there's no action here. It's just, again, different priorities and how you approach it. I personally think that there is an amazing opportunity here to delve into someone who is perhaps physically more vulnerable than the Abby in the game, but whose spirit is stronger. And then the question is, where does her formidable nature come from and how does it manifest? That's something that will be explored now and later," end quote. Dustin, what do you think of that? I don't hate the answer, actually, because at first blush, I was a little like, when we started seeing screens, I'm like, she's not, I knew she was petite. I'm pretty sure she was on, we talked about, she was on that show Last Man Standing with Tim Allen as one of the daughters. And
Right.
I knew her in my mind as just like kind of a normal framed woman, but I was like, oh, she must be bulking up or like doing something, because Abby obviously is. But this answer kind of does make some sense to me if they want to alter some things. Since we're not playing the game, the difference between the two characters doesn't really mean as much.
Yeah, I think that Abby being bulk is definitely core to the visual identity of her character, but it also isn't really, when you think about Abby as a character in general, there's not like a big emphasis about her. I'm trying to remember. It's been so many years. Like, she's not like constantly like, I gotta work out. I gotta do my lifts, bro. You know,
You
like,
see her working out, but I don't think it's ever really discussed. Like you see her, I think,
Right.
doing like lifts or like pull-ups and shit. But
right. Yeah. So to me, like, the adaptations need to be in the middle of some kind of scale between being very reminiscent of the game and bring something new or different to the table. I think about the World of Warcraft movie from a few years ago that was very faithful in a lot of ways and was a train wreck because of that, where if you didn't have extensive knowledge of the Warcraft lore, then you were totally fucking lost. But then you can also go too far off the rails where it's something that's like, why are we even calling it this? Like the Resident Evil movies, where eventually it just became kind of its own thing, which was successful on its own, but not very Resident Evil as we know it on this show. So in my opinion, this doesn't bother me at all. I think Neil's explanation makes sense, but honestly, it doesn't bother me enough that I even needed an explanation. Like, it's just a different portrayal of the character. If it was something major, like we decided that Abby is going to be a man in this version, and I'm not saying like a trans man or anything like crazy. I'm just saying that we changed the character's gender. Then I'd be like, that's very weird, you know, or something completely different with her backstory, or her motivation is different. It's like, that's when you get into weird territory. But her not being buff, whatever.
Yeah, and it was noted that people do and did have problems with the Bella Ramsey casting as Ellie, but I really think it's good. Like I never really had a problem with it. They don't look the same, but it doesn't matter. I mean, who cares?
I think it could be better. I don't know if she's the best choice, but I'm not. I think when I watch the show, I'm like, oh, this is good. It could be better, but
yeah,
whatever.
Chris, where are you on this?
I don't know, like, because I don't know if I care enough about the sanctity of The Last of Us to really jump out at a casting choice in the way that people are expecting. Like, I feel like the fact that Colin is all right with it kind of says a lot by itself, because you are obviously the most Last of Us minded person here. But to me, I look at it as like, damn it. That really threw me off. I think his explanation makes perfect sense. Like, I do think like that is a gameplay decision ultimately. And if there's no gameplay to be experienced, then there's not really a reason to be locked into a specific type of build for an actor. You know, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. That's like, I actually wasn't expecting an answer that made a lot of sense. I was actually expecting an answer to be like, no, I mean, who cares? Or like, you know, she's just the best person for the role. Like, you know, one of those kind of nebulous, kind of like, we tried a lot of people and she just had the best read. She had the best screen chemistry, like all sorts of, which are valid reasons to be honest. But like, just going in depth of the reason, it's like, well, no, I mean, Abby's size is a gameplay differentiator primarily. And there's no gameplay. So whatever is actually perfectly sound reasoning to me.
Yeah, it would also make, well, I was going to say Ellie comes off as a little more badass in the games, I think, like a little more capable. But we don't know her in The Last of Us season 2 yet, and that might be kind of caught up because there's years between the games, obviously, as we know. It's part of the reason why I think they chose Bella Ramsey is because they only really needed to get 1 year of like young Ellie out of her, and now she's an adult, so they can get, I think it'll be like a different aesthetic that might be a little bit more fitting. I'm with you, Chris, where I didn't expect to read something that made sense either. I just never really had a problem with it, and it does make sense. I think I could understand people's problems with it, and I get it from a in a certain regard. Abby is a foreboding physical presence. in The Last of Us, in my opinion. She is jacked. She is part of this like militia.
Right.
And there is something, since we know, and this is what I was getting to earlier, is since Ellie does read a little bit more like capable in the games and badass, although Ellie's great, and I think in the show too, I'm like the physical prowess, it's like a Street Fighter match where it's like Zangief and like Chun-Li or something, you know? And but they can both beat each other because they're good at different things. I think recasting Abby like this actually kind of resets the playing field where it is going to be more about, and this is what I think Neil was saying, was like more about where does her bravery come from? And like what I assume will still be true with Abby, which is that she's violent.
Right.
And I feel like that might be even a little scarier coming out of a Caitlin Dever than it would be like an actress that looked more, masculine built or whatever. I mean, because we have to remember that the whole Abby is transgender thing came from Abby's build. People read her as a man thinking that that was what was true about the character. So certainly there was a major physical differentiator, but I don't have a problem with this. I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to be really good. The screenshot they share of Abby and her people kind of walking through the snow with the alpine background or whatever is really cool. It gives me Red Dawn vibes, which is one of my favorites. And I'm looking forward to checking this out. When is it? It's April? Yeah, I think April. Okay. I thought this was interesting. IGN writes about this. And so apparently Shaun Layden, who of course ran PlayStation, what we know is PlayStation first party today, would be PlayStation Studios today, but it wasn't under him until 2019 and kind of gave way at that point. He gave an interview to this, I don't know, have you ever heard of this publication Kiwi Talks, or is this a YouTube channel? Yeah, it's a YouTube channel. And they interview him, and they basically they ask about a lot of different things that we're not going to talk about here, but one of the things that he's asked about, and I thought he had an interesting answer that I wanted to pitch by you guys, according to IGN here, is could Sony get away with a PlayStation 6 that didn't support discs? And this is what he had to say. Since we're only probably a couple of years away from learning about this machine at this point, quote, "I don't think Sony can get away with it now. I think Xbox has had more success in pursuing that strategy, but Xbox is really most successful in their business in a clutch of countries. The US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, coincidentally enough, all English-speaking countries. Sony, which is the number one platform in probably 170 countries around the world, has an obligation or a responsibility to say, if we go discless, how much of my market is not able to make that jump? Can users in rural Italy get a decent connection to enjoy games?" And then he later says, quote, "Which part of your market will be damaged by going by going to discless markets? I'm sure they're going to do their research on it, and there will be a tipping point when there's some percentage where you can say, okay, that's fine, we can turn our back on that part of the market. But Sony's market is globally so huge, I think it would be hard for them to go fully discless, even with the next generation." Dustin, this should certainly please you. That's not a huge surprise to me. I would think that they would make a PlayStation 6 that would be a solid state machine with a disk drive, though. I don't feel like they're going to have a disk drive in the new machine as a rule. I think they'll make you buy it.
Yeah, I would expect that it will be, I mean, in a worst case scenario, which unfortunately I would say is likely, is that it will not even attach directly to the unit itself. It might be an external Xbox 360 HD DVD drive situation as a possibility. But yeah, this makes sense to me. We always, you have to consider these other markets where he mentions like rural Italy. Will they have a strong enough download connection? And thinking about not just necessarily internet infrastructure, but also just spending habits of consumers in different markets. This was really clear to me in Japan, which is very physical media dominated. So I think that they understand that would be also a big jump there. So I would say I'm in agreement that we probably have another generation, but after that, maybe not.
I will say this, and Chris, I'm curious what you think of this, I think this is an important point, and it's a point that's going to bother some people, but I think it's an important point. We should not be expected for the PlayStation 6 to subsidize everyone's disk drive. it should not come with the console. The console should be as cheap as possible, and the disc drive should be for those who want it. So I really think it's important to go in that direction. In other words, if they announce the PlayStation 6 and you have to buy it with a disc drive, that's going to be profoundly disappointing to me, because it will add $50 or $100 to the machine that you could have just peeled off from most of your audience to appeal to a ever shrinking, ever vanishing part of your audience. So that's a major sticking point for me. But as long as they do that, I don't care.
They already did that, so that'd be a huge step back.
Right, but this is a redesigned console, their baseline console. It would be hard for you to. I think that's a coin flip. Personally, I don't think there's a guarantee that it's going to be in there. I think it's going to be cost prohibitive to include it where most people don't use it. And I think to what Shaun Layden's saying, the point he says is that certainly they're studying it. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Like they can just read, I'm sure, through metadata with all your consoles what you're playing off of and stuff like that. I mean, they know when you're playing on Portal. So
right.
Yeah,
because it's in your little stats at the end.
Right. I would just say it would be surprising to me since PS5 launched with a digital and a disc-based one with $100 price difference.
Right.
And now the PS5 Pro without a disc drive at all. It would be really surprising to me if they forced everybody to buy a disc drive.
Yeah, that's fair.
Next gen.
That's fair. I hope they continue the modularity of just choice and reducing cost. I'm not saying Xbox Series S style reducing cost. I want a stronger baseline than that. I think that console was a mistake for them, although they're going to continue to support it. Obviously, they have to. But so I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, make the machine, strip the machine down as much as possible, and then force people to kind of add onto it, like a 32X, for instance. Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I'm in agreement with you, and I'm in agreement with the Hokage. I think there's probably not going to be. I would likely not. I would bet against there being a disc drive on the next machine, like just based on how things are going. But an interesting thing that came out of this interview is and I never really considered it is that Xbox can do that because of the markets that it's successful in. I don't think I ever thought about that. Because I think in my mind, I'm always like, why are they doing this already? Like, it seems too early to not do discs. And there's like, oh, wait, no, they're successful in markets where they can reliably do that. And I didn't even think about that option. Granted, it happens to coincide with them failing on every single other level, but I actually don't think that's, related.
No, it's not. And those are the places you want to have some sort of presence. It's just Sony has done a really good job of spreading the field, and they continue to do a really good job, as we say, with Africa, especially in the next kind of frontier for them. And there's just so many potential PlayStation customers outside of the English-speaking world where Microsoft has relevance. Right. And so that is a canny kind of observation on Layden's part. Okay. This leak, the next two news items actually both happened today. This is a leak. This comes from the games, what is it called? Games, Leaks, and Rumors subreddit, which I read every week before I go to write the show, just to make, because there are things that are on here that are definitely true or reliable that for some reason websites don't report on. I have no idea why. Probably because they don't maybe trust it themselves. But a lot of stuff that is posted here comes true. So according to this leak here, and it's true because I watched the trailer, Metal Gear Solid Delta has a release date of August 28th, 2025. Did you see the trailer, Chris? Because I was thinking particularly of you with this trailer.
I did.
There's a Ape Escape reference in the now there is some sort of mode, I think, in Metal Gear. I don't remember this at all, but there is some sort of mode that this is talking about.
Yeah, I remember
Snake vs. Monkey or something like that.
I never actually played it, but I remember seeing screenshots of it, and I don't think it was a Game Informer, but it was some game magazine or on websites as well. Of there was an Ape Escape mode or mini game or something, or Easter egg where you could go in and you could capture apes as Snake or something like that. So yeah, I'm very pleased. I'm excited about this, man. I don't know. I think
Me too.
I think it's gonna be good. I don't think there's I'm not seeing a lot of reasons to believe it's going to be bad. I could be, who the fuck knows? Knock on wood, I guess, but it looks solid. I'm excited.
I have more faith in the Konami operation now that we've played, not only with the collections they've been putting out, which are great, but Silent Hill 2 is really, really good. And it's not that they made it, but they produced it, they paid for it, they shepherded it. So I have greater expectations now for this particular product. Dustin, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I actually did. I was reviewing the trailer now. I saw that the release date leaked, and I saw the Ape Escape thing. I didn't realize the whole trailer leaked, but I fucking love, I can't remember his name, the old guy who is the sniper.
The end?
It's at 43 seconds of the
end.
trailer, his eyeball popping out.
Dude,
Real
yeah.
good shit. Love to see that. But I agree with you, Chris, in that I think from being hurt so many times in my life, whether it's gaming or otherwise, when I hear about a Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, there's a gut instinct. I'm like, this isn't going to be good for some reason. And maybe it's just like some of the suffering involved with Metal Gear in general, right? And then the first trailer comes out, I'm like, okay. And every trailer since then has been better than the last in terms of the overall quality of the project. And so, I mean, I want to be in love again. You know, I want to be, and as Colin said, Konami doing pretty good recently. So this looks great. And I'm getting increasingly excited for this. So what was that date again? August 28th.
28th. Yeah. I think
too bad.
That's a great time.
Not too bad.
Dude.
That's a great time. Summer. It's a great time for this. And I really, I don't know if I would trust Konami to make a whole brand new thing from scratch, but like, again, like with Silent Hill 2 and this, I just think the blueprint is so good that like, as long as they stick to it as close as possible and like really only improve where necessary, I don't know. I feel like you're just looking at a baseline of great. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm wondering. So I'm on the Game Leaks Rumors Reddit, and the trailer link is vulcan.dl.playstation.net. What is this URL?
I don't know.
Like, it's like some backend URL that someone scooped off of the store, I guess, or something. I don't know. And then there's like some citations on Resetera as well that I think linked to it too. So it is authentic.
The Apescape.
And dude, I gotta say, like, I'm a Metal Gear Solid enjoyer. I'm a Metal Gear Solid appreciator. MGS3, I only played through fully for the first time a few years ago when we did it on Knockback. I love the bosses in the game, and they look fucking awesome in the trailer, like you were saying. Like, I think the Fury looks super cool. The like cosmonaut character. I mean, this is the bosses and the Pain, like with all the wasps or whatever he has, or hornets.
Yeah.
Super cool. I just love love Metal Gear bosses. And so
They're great.
I'm really, really looking forward to playing this with modern controls. Just a nice, true, hopefully remake of a classic game, and for them to begin along this path of remaking more of them, hopefully, if it works out. I don't want them to remake, but it looks good. I mean, I don't want to see any more now, though. I'm good now. I mean, obviously we know what happens. We've played the game, but hopefully there'll be some nice little surprises in there. Okay. August 28th, 2025 for Metal Gear Solid Delta. We'll all be there. And we'll also all be there for this next game as well. And this news also broke this morning as of we're recording. Death Stranding 2 has a South Korean rating from their games rating board, indicating that the game's release is somewhat imminent. They're being submitted to the ESRB and others. So this is the first one that's kind of been published. This comes alongside, and I didn't put it in here, but it is relevant that Kojima himself did tweet out a picture of him editing a trailer that seems to be for Death Stranding. And this is indicative of the potential. And there are strong rumors. We're recording this on February 6th. There are strong rumors that that there'll be a state of play in the next week or so. So maybe by the time we record again. And so this trailer might be for that as well. And frankly, the Metal Gear Solid 3 thing is probably for that too. So something to look forward to there. Anticipation levels for Death Stranding 2, release date, predictions, feelings in the gut. Anything you want to share, Chris?
Oh man, as far as like a feeling, or like a prediction, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about predicting game release dates based on what is it, ESRB ratings, purely because, and I'm still thinking about Silk Song,
right?
but I'm excited about it. I need it now, quite frankly. This is probably, off the top of my head, definitely like top 3 games of the year for me. So
me too.
I'm really, really excited. I want to play it as soon as possible. I hope it's imminent. It would be awesome if it would be amazing if it was March or something. But
yeah,
I feel like that's too wishful.
I feel a May release date. That might be a little too ambitious, but I feel like they're going to spring it in some sense. What's the point of not doing that? Don't get anyone too excited. You don't want to spoil too much of it. I don't know that I want to see anymore. I'll watch the next trailer probably, and then I'm probably going to bail out after that. Dustin,
Yeah.
Death Stranding 2 predictions, thoughts, excitement level, etc.
We're getting to the point now where I think that developers have waited to see what Rockstar is going to do with Grand Theft Auto 6, but I think they're at the point where they can no longer wait if they want to release some of these games this year. So I'd like to see it. I mean, I want to see it shadow dropped at the State of Play. That's what I truly want. But I'm thinking Sony's two big games are going to be this and Ghost of Yotei, assuming that's all. I mean, they've announced that it's going to be this year, so it's kind of figuring out which one, where those slot. And I would say if one of them is going to be a holiday game, it's probably Ghost of Yotei. So that would leave this one being a little bit earlier. So maybe this is around the time of Metal Gear. So August, May,
Summer.
June, summer.
Yeah.
That'd be
I
sick.
think I just based on how much we've seen of both games, I think we can kind of infer of which one's going to go first and which one's going to go last. And I think it's safe to say that I think it's pretty safe to say that like first half of the year, like I don't think this is going to be like September or anything, you know.
We'll see. I'm excited. Really, really excited. And I want to replay Death Stranding 1. I never played it on PS5. So I'm going to replay it in time for the second one, just to kind of, because I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of connectivity.
Did you play the director's cut at all?
No, I didn't. I only played the original PS4 release.
I have that
And
one.
I haven't
sitting on my
touched it
machine.
since 2019, probably. So yeah, I got to get into it. I refresh myself. I really, really loved it.
Yeah.
But I never platinumed it because I was moving at the time, and so I just got distracted. But I think maybe I'll try to do that because there's all these effective things you can build and all these crazy contraptions and whatnot, and I never really did any of that stuff to like get around the map really quickly to kind of make it snappy.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely explore it in a deeper way. And the sequel, yeah, looks good. I can't wait to meet Guitar Man for myself. All right, shout out to Warhorse Studios. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is out. It sold 1 million copies in one day. Most of those are probably pre-orders. Phil Walker wrote in and said, just want to congratulate Warhorse Studios on 1 million copies of Kingdom Come 2 sold. Not bad for a woke game from a racist Nazi creative director. And just going to prove everyone needs to, and he put this in asterisks, which I appreciate. Shut the fuck up. I just think this is another example of maybe that we overread the effect that the culture war really has on virtually any product. And I feel like we learned this with the original Kingdom Come Deliverance. I mean, it's not a huge surprise. I'm not in no way poo-pooing 1 million copies sold in a day. That's awesome. But I actually would have expected something maybe even a little stronger considering how many copies the original sold and how much attention this game was getting, especially because it's so kind of empty right now for new releases in the role-playing genre. But I'm sure it's going to continue to truck along. It was at 167,000 concurrents, I think, on Steam, which is amazing for a game like this. And, a single player game. And I know Micah really enjoyed the original game. She played it on Switch somehow. And I feel bad for her because she went to GameStop at our local GameStop to trade in like some old Xbox hardware. And she got like a bunch of money. So she pre-ordered a bunch of games and she pre-ordered Kingdom Come and then they never got the copy in. And so she still doesn't have it. And it's like, you could have just ordered it on Amazon and gotten it overnight. And it's a good reason why we shouldn't be shopping at GameStop, I guess. It reminded me of the last time I shopped there when I bought Super Mario Odyssey in 2017 and how annoying they were as they made me. It's probably on an early episode of the show, actually, about how I had to walk back and forth like 4 times because they kept telling me they did have it and then they didn't and then they did. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, why don't I just buy the game online? So are either of you I'm looking down here, neither of you are playing it. Are you gonna check out Kingdom Come Deliverance, either of you?
I actually initially bought it on Steam, played for about an hour and a half, and I liked it. But then I was thinking about what's coming out, whether or not I have to like really want to dedicate time to playing it right now. So I did refund it, but I'd like to play more. And the beginning was really cool. I didn't put it as what you've been playing because I feel wrong to tell everybody my impressions and thoughts on something that I barely played.
Yeah.
It was cool. It's visually very impressive. And I really couldn't get into the first game, which is why I was like, well, maybe I'll try, the a trial of it
Mm.
and see if I'm into it. And I did like what I played, but a different game is going to completely dominate me for the foreseeable future. So I want to give it the respect it deserves. But I'm a little annoyed about this because initially for our Metacritic draft, this is a game I picked. It was like over 90, and it's now slowly dropping.
Yeah, as they do.
Yeah. Someone, let's see, Games Hub gave it a 5 out of 10, and Eurogamer gave it a 6. I don't know. I mean, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but
That seems harsh.
it seems a little overly harsh based on what I mean, so many 9s. So, it's fine. The game, there's many facets to the game. That's one of them, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I know that the Eurogamer review is being ridiculed, including by Daniel Vavra, the writer.
He's been very active.
Yeah,
he's so rich from the game. Just let it ride.
I think he's hurting himself a little bit still.
Yeah.
Like, I know that they feel redeemed after what happened with the first game and how unfairly treated it was. It was crazy how that game was treated. I thought the way people were writing about it was a time of another games journalism where it was bad. And so I know that put a chip on his shoulder, but you won. I understand swinging at the people you beat. It's fun, but you really won. And I just think it doesn't really matter, which is probably a nice, powerful place to be where it's like, yeah, okay, I'll carve a few sales off by being myself or whatever. Who cares? But I would just let the game sell as many copies as humanly possible if I were him. So, but teach their own. Are you going to play, Chris?
It's one of those games that like it looks interesting to me, but I can tell that I'm not going to really be able to get into it unless that's like a space and time, like a headspace kind of game where I'm like, I need to be in a space where I'm receptive to a game like this because I know that it's slow and like kind of intentionally mundane in its approach to like how it's like the world that it's building, and it's just like this is very realistic to like, and it's very grounded. And I think that's awesome, and I would like to play it, but I can just tell right now that I'm not in that mode. I'm not in the mode to sit down with something that's that grounded and contemplative. So I think I'll get to it eventually. I'm not necessarily waiting for a sale or anything. I'm just kind of like, I can just tell now's not the time.
Yeah, it's not for me. It looks cool. I appreciate it, but it's too serious, too real. In that genre, realism is good sometimes, but not with that.
I'm in a fantastical, like, I want action right now.
Yeah, I understand that. Some action you shall get. I don't know what that means. All right. Over at Video Games Chronicle, our friends over there write, EA has confirmed a planned release window for its new Battlefield game. So in their financials recently, in which they were complaining about the way Dragon Age and other things sold, we'll talk about that in a little while. They say that they expect to release it in the 2026 fiscal year. That means that it will release by March 31st of 2026, which is the end of their fiscal year, the end of their fourth quarter. I imagine it's a fall game. And actually they point to, and I went to this website, they point to a website where you can go. So if you just find the story on VGC, because it's like some sort of long URL, you go into a queue that brings you to the official Battlefield website, and you can actually sign up for, I think, some testing and getting involved in some beta and beta testing and all of that on various platforms. So you can go check that out if you want. I know people are really looking forward to this. We haven't gotten Battlefield since 2021, right?
Yeah.
Battlefield 2042 was the last one. So it's been a long time. This is a space that EA very much needs to be in. And especially if you realize that, I don't know if you guys read about what they said about Football Club 25 and why they're disappointed in it, even though it was one of the best selling games of the year. And it's like, these guys need revenue, I guess. So this is a space that they really need to be in, and they need to get this game right. So the new game apparently is somewhat imminent. I assume we'll be playing it within the next less than a calendar year. If you want to get involved in the closed testing, like you said, you can do that. It's called Battlefield Labs, I guess, if you can Google it as well. Mm-hmm. Any interest in this game, Chris?
Yeah, dude. Like, I love Battlefield. But it's been a while since it's hooked me. I think probably Battlefield 1 was the last time I was really into it. That was the World War I one with like horses and all sorts of shit. It was like awesome. It was so cool. But I was always more into, generally speaking, the either old like historical ones or just the more contemporary ones. So whenever they try to go into like the future or whatever, like I just don't like at this point. I don't know. I play Halo or something. Like there's better places to do that, I think. And so this one looks based on some of the. I only saw like one teaser like video thing. It looks like it's a contemporary Battlefield, so it looks like it's more in line with Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, which were the ones that I liked previously before 1. So like I'm ready. I hope they learned from 2042 that there are certain things that do and don't belong in Battlefield. One of those things being like, I don't know, a scoreboard at launch would be nice. Like, so hopefully they get everything right. I know that there was like an issue with some of the way operators function, but I didn't play Battlefield 5 and 2042 long enough to even really know specifically what was the problem with those things. But yeah, I've been itching for a Battlefield game, honestly, for a while, and get on it because I'm in.
You're gonna get it. You're gonna get it real soon. Wonder what it'll be called. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Battlefield, where the FIELD are all capitalized and it stands for something like fear.
My guess is that it's gonna be 6, but
6, that would be cool.
I mean, because it is just contemporary, and that's just generally like what that means. It would be cool to see a Bad Company.
Yeah, I was gonna say Battlefield
like,
Bad Company 3 or something.
I would love a Bad Company again, even if it wasn't the same. Just the idea of a Bad Company again would be really exciting to me. But I don't know. Whatever. We'll see.
Dustin, are you gonna get in on this Battlefield madness?
I've always tried to get into Battlefield games. I think it was Battlefield 3 or 4. One of them was a launch game for PS4 or around launch.
That was Battlefield 4, yeah.
And that was horribly broken at launch. Like the online servers like didn't work or something. But it's weird, man. Battlefield has had so many ups and downs, and I know there's a lot of promise behind this one with Vince Zampella kind of heading things up. I don't remember what his official role is, but I hope it's awesome. I would love there to be great competition and also like a different style of game from Call of Duty that is a leader in the market. So I saw the little clip that was posted, all the destruction. It looks very impressive. And as with any Battlefield game, the trailers, it always looks insanely fun, but they don't always connect with me. But I'm curious about it. When it comes time for a beta or something like that, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. They haven't had like a hit, like a trailer hit since like, because I know Battlefield 1 had that Seven Nation Army trailer that was just so goddamn good. And that was also the last one that I liked at all. 5 was kind of a mess, and 2042 was obviously a mess. So it's just like they need to win. And I'm rooting for them because I like that there's a game like this that takes a while to come out. I like that it's like, you know, on a 3-year cadence. It's more nostalgic in that sense. I have time to miss it, I guess. It's just like, oh, yay, another Battlefield. But it's all up in the air whether or not it'll be good. I hope it is.
They've shown some,
and I need a new Battlefield.
They've shown some level of restraint. It's surprising to me that they haven't been more aggressive with Battlefield in some sense, but I think they probably wanted it to be, but I just think they can't get the game right, which is weird. Like, I don't know why a company with that kind of means and operational power can't create something really great in that space again.
I think it's a harder game to annualize because it's so much bigger than a Call of Duty, just not just in like the scale of it, but just like there's a lot more at play. Like my biggest lament with Call of Duty really is that it just feels very unreactive. It's like there's not a lot going on, but with Battlefield, like there's like destruction, there's like physics, there's like vehicles that are like consistently at play. It's more complex in some ways, so you can understand why they come out at a softer cadence. It's just a matter of like, since you're coming out at a softer cadence, I feel like it's reasonable that we should expect better we should expect like a great game every time, in some sense, because you nailed it and you understand what works. Battlefield 1 was great, and that was like the biggest weird kind of like World War I. That was the weirdest direction they could have possibly gone. So to go with 5, and 5 was a mess, and that was more traditional Battlefield, and then 2042 2042, which was like more of like the feature Battlefield that they've done before, and that also didn't hit. It's weird to me that they don't know what works, I guess. But I don't know. I'm rooting for it. I hope it's good.
Yeah, me too. I think it would be great to have it back. I don't know that maybe I'll play the campaign. I loved Battlefield 1's campaign a lot.
Yeah, it was like anthologies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Great.
Cool. Really well done. All right. Oh yeah, this was interesting news. So it was posted on social media feeds by the MultiVersus team that the fighting game MultiVersus is going away. They say in part, quote, Season 5 will serve as the final update for MultiVersus beginning 2/4/25, so that's already passed, and ending on May 30th. After Season 5 ends, players will be able to enjoy the game offline for the foreseeable future. Visit our blog post and FAQ for more details. Thank you for your support throughout this journey, end quote. So MultiVersus is going away. This fighter, of course, only came out in its full version, I guess, just last year. It did reach like 150,000 concurrents on Steam, but totally cratered. It's on both PS4 and PS5 as well as other platforms, so it is playable elsewhere. It was, I think, in the beta on Unreal 4, and then they moved it to Unreal 5 for the final release of the game. I don't know much about this game. I'm not in the fighters of this nature really anymore, but to me, the problem with this game, from my perspective, is always just the cast. I just don't think Warner or whoever, whatever entity, and I think it is Warner, I just don't think they really have a powerful enough assemblage of characters to make a compelling game that people are going to want to play. There's some cool characters in here, but I think half of them are whatever. It's no Smash Brothers or something like that. So I do think that that's a major part of why the game failed. But I also just think there's a lot of competition and people have problems with it. Although I'm not really in the weeds in the fighting game community. So I don't know. Any thoughts on this? Did either of you play this?
I played the beta, but yeah, I feel like this game had a lot of buzz and excitement around it. So I'm not sure really what happened. It is funny because Warner seemed to be obsessed with the idea of crossovers to the point where they released 3 very big, expensive products, being Ready Player One, this fucking terrible new Space Jam movie that we've made fun of in the past for having the Clockwork Orange rapists on the sidelines. So, and then this as well as a crossover of their IP, and it just has this feeling of like you having some really important and big IP, but you're not the guy. You're not the one who has the cachet to do this. Which maybe to some people, if you really care about, Rick and Morty fighting the Iron Giant, then this is your game. But
yeah,
I don't know. I'm over the crossover. The crossover bait is just too much.
LeBron James v. Steven Universe. You didn't want to get
you don't want.
Now, if you could put me in the game and I could beat the shit out of Steven Universe, I would play that game.
Oh.
Right.
Who is Steven Universe? I know nothing about this man.
The Cartoon Network show, I think. That's after us, for sure.
I've seen screenshots of it and merchandise, but I was like, I have no fucking clue what this is.
I don't like the style of it. Don't they call it the bean mouth or whatever, Chris? Like the
they call it the Cal Arts, yeah.
Yeah.
And some of those shows are like, I know that was it the Gumball show is I see clips from that Gumball show every now and again that like genuinely make me howl. Like I remember there's like sad banana character and he's like walking into an establishment and he's like, "Excuse me, I'm hanging up posters for my mom, she's missing." She goes like, "Oh my god, okay." He goes up to the window and he nails it, the window. But it's so sad, but it's so good. Like that show mixes mediums, but like a lot of the shows that are younger, like I don't know, I haven't even watched cable television in God knows fucking over a decade at this point.
Yeah.
So like I'm not in tune with what the fuck's going on there, but this game, I don't know. If you want the Gremlins to fight, like, I don't know, Rick and Morty, I mean, I guess it's your game. I don't know what the Venn diagram of, I don't know what that audience even looks like. Like, I really want to main the Gremlins.
Right, exactly. And there are some characters where it's like, there are some cool characters where I'm looking at the list here, where it's like, yeah, like the Powerpuff Girls. I love them. And in a fighting game, they would be great. And it just doesn't make any sense. And Marvin the Martian obviously is great. But I don't know, they just
It's not the right. Well, here's the issue: is like they're actually well poised to do a crossover fighter because they do. I think they have a lot of great characters. It's just a matter of like nobody wants to see this from anything that isn't video games. I think.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see Don Draper fighting the Gremlins, or you know what I mean? Like I don't need television. I don't need television characters or like movie like there's something about it that just doesn't feel right. It doesn't work as well. Like it's more about like, you know, Marvel versus Capcom or like, Smash Brothers. Even something as interesting as like, I would love to see, you know, PlayStation versus Xbox or like, you know, that would be fucking dope.
That would be fucking cool. Especially if the game was called that, actually.
Yeah.
That might actually be very plausible in the coming years. We'll see. But,
if that didn't happen, Sony would be the reason why that didn't happen, not Microsoft.
Yeah,
they're so much more amenable.
I do think once the hardware conversation is kind of not material, I do think you'll see more of that stuff. Because why wouldn't you? I guess. But yeah, Warner Brothers is just not it. Like no one cares about the Iron Giant fighting. I don't even know what I'm looking at their Twitter feed right now, and there's characters that I swear to God aren't even finished in the image. Like, look at this. I'm going to send you guys an image. It's from their Twitter feed, the MultiVersus Twitter feed from January 16, 2025. What the fuck is happening here?
Let's see.
So it's the Iron Giant and a gremlin, and they're glowing, but then there's like a fucking rectangle and a circle.
Those are...
Is that Adventure Time? No.
I'd assume they're Adventure Time characters since there's Peppermint Butler.
That's a character? Peppermint
That's a
Butler?
character from Adventure Time, Peppermint Butler.
All right.
Yeah.
God bless.
Hey, if you say so. Nathan Drake versus Blinks. Yeah, something like that would be.
That'd be awesome. See, that I want to see. Voodoo Vince versus fucking, I don't know.
Aloy. Child Aloy.
Child Aloy.
Child Aloy. Versus.
They gotta get Epic Lloyd. They gotta get the rap battles of history guy to do it.
MultiVersus is free to play, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It is now, I think.
Yeah.
So they're putting it offline and letting people still play it, which I think is kind of a nice move.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's not permanent. I wonder when they'll take it off. But that's cool. The foreseeable future, they say. All right. I don't know if you guys saw this. Push Square reported on this. It says rumor, and they spelled rumor with a U, which I've always found very offensive. Devil May Cry remake supposedly outed by Virgil voice actor. So I guess the guy who plays Daniel Southworth is the guy who plays Virgil in the Devil May Cry games in which he appears. And he was at Power Morphicon 2024. And this footage is actually old, but was revived by a website called the Nerd Stash. And it says here on Push Square, the footage is now only being reported on over 5 months later. And Southworth says this, and it's during a Devil May Cry specific anniversary panel at Power Morphicon 2024. It says, quote, "In fact, I just finished a video game 3 or 4 weeks ago." Remember, he's talking about it through the context of August. "I don't want to say any titles or anything because I'm known for spilling the beans, but they asked me to do my voice the way it was back in 2004 or whatever. They asked, can you do the younger Virgil version? So that was challenging." Now, the story says, quote, "Naturally, Southworth's comment suggests that some kind of Devil May Cry remake is happening with him cast as a younger version of a recurring antagonist, Virgil. But at this point, we make... they make it clear here in this. I don't need to read this, that it could be a separate project. If you watch the video, it looks like the people that are with him kind of like look at him with a little bit of horror, which is interesting. Reminds me, wasn't there a Marvel press tour where someone spoiled the shit out of one of the Marvel movies?
Oh yeah,
and everyone
Tom
was
Holland
horrified.
Tom Holland, I know, is the guy who plays Spider-Man. He spoils a lot. And I think there was one with Mark Ruffalo, I think, where he was talking about where he's like, everybody dies.
Oh,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Everyone dies.
Don Cheadle's like, yo! Specifically.
Yeah, it's Don Cheadle and Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great... I love that video so much. It's like, wait until you see this next one. Everybody dies. It's awesome.
If Don Cheadle just hadn't said anything, people would have thought that he was joking.
Yeah, Don Cheadle kind of fucked it up, actually.
Yeah.
Well, they both fucked it up, but like
Yeah.
he cemented the fuck up, I think.
Yeah. Are either of you Devil May Cry people? I haven't played the newer ones. The last one I played was 3, which was a PS2 game. So I like them, but
I have played fully 4 and 5, and then I played a little bit of 1 and 3.
yeah, 2 I think is considered the bad one, right?
Yeah, 2 is considered
Yeah.
the bad one. Man, I absolutely love Devil May Cry 5. I think it is maybe not underrated, but underappreciated by people for how fucking good it is. So I'm very excited if they're doing anything. I don't care if it's a remake or a prequel, whatever. More Devil May Cry is good news, whatever it is.
Any guess how many copies Devil May Cry 5 sold? It's
Not enough.
pretty impressive.
Oh,
6 million?
More.
more
Whoa.
than 6 million?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's 10 million.
10 million?
Holy
Yeah.
fuck.
As
Kind
of
of
last
sounded really? How long ago was that?
It was as of last year. The game came out in 2019, so it's been on sale and it's had a lot of time to sell.
And
No,
they
And it got
re-released it.
re-released. You know?
Yeah.
I guess I get that. I guess what I'm saying is like comes out in 2019, sells that many copies. Clearly, most of them in the beginning or earlier on. Kind of surprised that we haven't seen another one.
Yeah, well, that's why I brought it up, is to say, like, of course we're getting another Devil May Cry game. Like,
Right, yeah.
Of course we are. And he would have wrapped it up. I mean, he would have maybe been done with some of the pickups he had to do and stuff last year. Maybe this game might be even announced this year. I'm sorry, what were you going to say, Dustin?
I was going to say, I think the lead guy, the director of Devil May Cry, is also the head of Dragon's Dogma.
Yeah,
So,
Hideaki Itsuno.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So he was working on that, and I want to say he's not at Capcom anymore.
Yeah,
he
he left. That's right. He
Yeah.
did he found the new Lightspeed Studios was the new team I think he founded. He left last year. A lot of Japanese movement. I mean, I don't know if you got. I didn't put it in here because I think it's just too in the weeds and people won't care. But a lot of people left Platinum.
Mm-hmm.
Like more people than we thought. It's like, wow, this is a unrecognizable team at this point. I don't know what that's all about. When Inafune and Ego left Capcom and Konami, respectively, more than 15 years ago, or around 15 years ago, that was considered totally insane. And then nothing really happened for a while. And now it seems like it's kind of bubbling back up, even with the unceremonious kind of leaving of that chick from Tango, right?
Oh,
Right.
And then
Yeah.
Mikami taking the game over and whatever. So, yeah. So I brought up the Devil May Cry stuff to just say, yeah, of course we're going to get another one. It's an incredibly popular game. The series itself is at 32 million units sold between the 5 games plus DMC, I guess would count too. Did you guys play that game, the Ninja Theory one? I never played that game.
Yeah,
Everyone hated it.
I remember everybody hated it, and I remember understanding why, but like I remember playing it and be like, this plays really well, dude. Like that as a video game, that's a good ass video game. I don't know about the story, or like I don't know if it's like real. I think the issue is that it was like, this is not Devil May Cry, and it very much is not. But I stand by that. That's like a really good action game.
Yeah, I think people. What I remember about it, because it came out in 2013, it's like Enslaved came out in 2010, which was okay. But I think people wanted like a recapturing of Heavenly Sword, 2007, which I think is kind of embedded a little bit in Devil May Cry. Like they definitely have the chops to make shit like that, which is interesting. So, Heavenly Sword, we almost got a Heavenly Sword sequel. Sony turned it down. I really liked Heavenly Sword. That was a really, really strong early PlayStation 3 exclusive. I wonder if they'll ever port it. It's never come out. It came out fall 2007, I want to say. And never got a re-release, never shown anywhere. I don't know why they're not into it.
I don't know.
That game was
Fall
awesome.
2007. Fall 2007 is a bad time for PlayStation 3, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's a really bad time. It really was. It really was. Dark, dire shit. Comical, though. Like I said, it was a fun time to cover the brand for people that did so. All right, just a few more things here I wanted to get through. Insider Gaming, our friend Tom Henderson over there, his reporting, he has some deep connections at Ubisoft, so he knows a lot of things, although this particular information came from LinkedIn, I think, so he just had to do a little bit of scouring. But I was just wanted to say Prince of Persia The Lost Crown, which came out about a year ago, the Metroidvania, the 2.5D game from Ubisoft, 1.3 million copies sold. I think that sounds pretty good to me. I don't know what they would have wanted.
Yeah.
What did you want? You made what, a cool 25 million bucks? The game probably cost more than that to make, unfortunately, because you have no control over your costs. But a game like that shouldn't have cost more than 10, maybe. I see that and I'm like, that's a good game. I really liked it. I platinumed it. I played it at the time, and it sold very appreciably. And they're like, anyway. So just wanted to throw that out there. I probably also should have talked about this earlier, but I didn't. It would have made a lot more sense. Konami has very quietly been making a lot of money on video games. And this is also giving me cause for some sort of excitement. So if you look at just their digital entertainment revenue, and this comes from gamesindustry.biz, but if you look at their digital entertainment revenue for the calendar or for their fiscal year, so it will be 9 months up to what they're reporting, they made $1.4 billion in revenue, which is up 32% year over year. But their profit off that $1.4 billion is $519.7 million, which is up 44.6% year over year. I bring this up only because I feel like connected with Metal Gear, there's rumors of a new Castlevania game getting announced. I'm not reporting on that too deeply because who the hell knows, but they're starting to like accumulate some funds where they can start really spending more. And I think they're going to be returning to the space more prominently than they even are now with just Silent Hill remake. And I think we're going to get some new stuff from them, which is cool. Maybe in these old franchises. And obviously we're getting Silent Hill F and all this stuff. We already know that, but
yeah, I
would keep an eye on Konami because they're making a lot of money very quietly. And finally, this is just a little bit of a news story I wanted to report on for one specific reason, which is that there seems to have been layoffs around this. And so people are reporting on that. Sony owns a middleware kind of like technologies company called SN Systems. They've owned them since 2005. They were founded in the 90s, and they just make programming tools for PlayStation consoles. And they used to make stuff for like Nintendo consoles and stuff too, but Sony bought them or whatever. It's just technical behind the scenes stuff. However, I'm reporting on this because Sony is announcing that Sony acquired them in 2005, but kind of kept them separate, and they're now being fully integrated into SIE themselves. This is relevant only because recent stories surrounding layoffs at Sony have to do with this integration. So if you see news of people losing their jobs, which they have, and that's always sad, it's because of this integration of this kind of external subsidiary SN Systems being integrated in SIE and the overlap that will create for them. So that's it. That's all we have for the smaller news items. Pretty brisk week this week. A few more things we'll get to shortly, but before we do that, I want to talk about what we're playing. I'll go first, just get my shit out of the way here. I platinumed Phantom Fury, so that's platinum number 177. I really don't recommend this game. It comes from Slipgate Ironworks. It's a sequel to Ion Fury, which was a boomer shooter that came out in 2019. That's very well regarded, that I also platinumed, and I really liked that game a lot. This is, as I said last week, an evolution of the game that would... So if Ion Fury is like Doom or Doom 2, this game is like Unreal Tournament era, maybe, that kind of shooter. So it's cool. It's a cool idea of something very basic, but fully 3D. In other words, not a game that's using 2D sprites on a 3D plane like Doom does, but rather a game that's fully integrated into 3D. So like an early PS2 game, late PS1 game, that era of turn of the century PC gaming. It's just not very good. It's boring and actually quite simple. Surprisingly so. Ion Fury was really hard on the hardest difficulty. I had to play this on the hardest difficulty to get the platinum, and I don't know. I was just unimpressed. The reviews kind of say this online. A lot of people aren't really into it, so I really don't recommend it unless you're really, really into shooters. Unless you really liked Ion Fury, you want to see the continuation. Micah and I were watching the ending of it, and she thought it was. She's like, it's so audacious of them to. There's a stinger at the end being like a sequel, like or a third game, and it's like I don't think so, guys. I think we're good now on Phantom Fury. I started Mafia 3 Definitive Edition a few days ago. I played Mafia 3 back when it came out in 2016, but I never beat it. So I'm still in parts of the game where I had seen before. This game is so much more robust of an open world game than the first two games, and it definitely shows. It's maybe even a little too complex in some ways. It reminds me most of EA's Godfather games in some respects. I don't know if you guys played those games back in the day, but as far as like city control and controlling like rackets, and definitely started, or at least was from there. There were a few other games that did that too. But it takes place in the 60s. As people know, you play as a black guy named Lincoln Clay in this deeply racist New Orleans facsimile, and he's like he works with like a CIA agent, and he actually ends up being that he's like in the Vietnam War, and he was like a special ops guy, and so he's just fucking destroying these dudes, these like gangsters that fuck with his family or whatever. It's pretty cool. I still think the first one is the best one. The one thing I will say, and again, no spoilers, because I said last week that, and this isn't really a spoiler because it doesn't tell you what happens, but that the ending of Mafia 1 is in Mafia 2. Like, you play it. And Mafia 2 is deeply embedded in Mafia 3, specifically with a one character. And I don't remember this. Like, they do speak to each other a lot more than I kind of had thought in my mind. They are like a continuity. It makes me wonder, with the prequel coming out, The Old Country, like how that's going to connect, if at all, to, I guess, the first game. Because they do take place one after the other. Because the first one's in the 40s, the second one, or the 30s even, and the 20s. The second one is in the 40s into the 50s, and the third one's in the 60s.
Yeah.
So this new one goes back to, I guess, the early 1900s. But so it's good. I'm enjoying it. And it's got all the DLC, which I obviously didn't play back in the day. And then I've spent a lot of time with Civilization 6. As I said last week, and I want to go to you next, Dustin, because I know you're playing Civ 7, is I'm totally cool on just Civ 6 right now. And I've also, Civ 7 doesn't seem to be well received in a lot of different corners. It's got pretty bad reviews on Steam right now. Although, as I understand, and I'm not a hardcore Civilization player like many people are, but they're always poorly received when they're launched. And Civ 6 isn't particularly well liked either. A lot of people think that the series either spiked with 4 or peaked with 4 or 5. So, but I like 6 a lot, and I'm spending a lot of time with it, learning, kind of figuring things out, getting halfway through a 500 turn game and then being like, and then restarting it again. So it's fun. And I'd like to do more with it in the coming weeks and months. I don't want to spend too much time with it because it is a time sink that really should be spent elsewhere. But I'm going to continue to mess with it. It's on the cross media bar. So very similar to Helldivers 2 this time last year. It's going to probably beckon me for a little while. So that's what I'm playing. Dustin, let's go over to you. It says here you're playing Pokemon Soul Silver for some reason, plus Civilization 7.
Yeah.
Talk to us about it.
Well, Holly has been playing the remake of Pokemon Pearl. And so I've been thinking, and I'm also playing this stupid card game on my phone. So I've been thinking a lot about Pokemon lately. So I decided to get out, check this out. This little,
DSI?
DSI.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, this DSI I got at a yard sale like a year or two ago for $10, and it's actually pretty good. Pretty nice condition. $10.
Wow. The DSI is a fucking nice kit, dude. I love that. I love that thing.
Yeah. Now, this one did have one small problem that I noticed when I was kind of messing around with it, is that it might just need cleaned out, but the cartridge slot is a bit finicky, where it'll make games freeze or it won't read them right. So I installed a soft mod on it, and I'm able to rip the games directly to an SD card and then just play it without the game even in it, which is nice.
Nice.
You can also download your own games, which I did download a few that I don't have to remember. So that's an option. But dude, the soft mod on this thing is so easy. Anyone can do it. But I've been having fun playing Soul Silver. And also last night, I was just there playing maybe like 20, 30 minutes playing Elite Beat Agents. If anyone remembers that game. It's an awesome like rhythm game that's kind of like, there's a modern game called Osu, which I don't know anything about, but apparently Osu is based on Elite Beat Agents. So I was having fun playing that. And I don't know, I'm just kind of oddly obsessed with the DS right now. I grew up with the Nintendo DS. I remember when I bought a DS Lite, I barely had enough money to get one. And then I had no games for it. I only had my Game Boy Advance games, but I just needed to have that hardware.
Right.
So I'm kind of thinking about getting a DSi XL.
Oh, I didn't even know they made one of those.
Yeah, it was the first XL console that Nintendo made. So I might have a visit to my game store in the future to see maybe they have one. But
I bought the DSi the day it came out.
Oh, nice.
It was the last. I guess I bought the Switch too, but that was like when I was still kind of in the gravity well of Nintendo, but late, because it was 2010, 2009, something like that.
Mm.
The DSi,
yeah.
DSi, yeah. Yeah, I never had this. I only had the DS Lite, so it's been fun.
I had a black one, I want to say.
Dude, the DSi is so nice. It's like a soft touch plastic.
Yeah, it's like matte, right?
It feels good. It's like what?
It's matte, right?
Yeah, it's matte. Whereas the DS Lite is like glossy.
I don't even know where mine is. Dagan must have it with all my other shit.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll pick up a DSi XL to add to the collection at some point. I also, Colin, I want to check out, because I was like looking at lists like what are the best DS games, seeing which ones I missed growing up. Castlevania, what is it? The DS one.
Oh, there's 3 of them.
There's 3 of them, but one of them is like DS, like Dawn of
Sorrow.
Dawn of Sorrows. I've heard that's very good and very affordable to
I don't
pick up.
think I ever made that connection,
Yeah,
to be honest.
Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think that's the first DS.
It's probably yeah, because we were talking about how on the collection they're presented backwards, which doesn't really make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it might be a timeline thing. Cool. Yeah, what I remember about the DSi, I loved the DS too. The DS is fucking sick. A wonderful machine. The original one is so shoddy compared to the Lite, and then it felt like you could like drop it down like 3 stories and it would not do anything to it. It's just so solid, it's snappy.
Yeah, that you can.
I only ever
the
had
hinge is still good. In this one.
I only ever had the first one, the
fat one, like the wide
fat
one.
The screens on it are ass.
Yeah. I mean,
the DS Lite.
Well, yeah. I kind of abandoned handhelds after that. Like it was the PSP and the original DS were like the last time.
Yeah, they were like
and the Vita that you gifted me.
The dude, it's so fucking funny about Nintendo. I was watching some random video. I went through like 8 of them, so I can't reference the YouTuber, but they were mentioning how it is so Nintendo that they released the GBA SP, which has an immaculate screen, and then their next console is a downgrade in screen quality. And deja vu, because that's probably going to happen again with the Nintendo Switch 2, which is rumored to not have an OLED screen. So Nintendo does not change in some ways.
Yeah, they don't want the price to get out of control, I think. I think their customers are going to be very price sensitive.
Yeah, that's true. I would rather them just release 2 versions at launch, but they'll know they can sell me 2.
Yeah, they'll sell you one later.
They'll sell me one later and they'll get me. And so I'm the bitch in this situation.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true.
That's fine. But so Civilization 7.
Yeah, so wait. Marco Bruno wrote in and said, hello, Dustin. How are you enjoying Civ 7? I haven't gotten to it yet, but plan to shortly. Do you have any tips? It's supposed to be pretty stripped down, as I understand.
Yes and no. So I did. So if I'm playing right now, that means I purchased the early access deluxe edition. Holly and I decided that we remembered that Holly's grandma gave us as a together $100 for Christmas, which I'm always like, you don't need to give us money, but she insists, so it's fine. So I was like, why? This is a collective thing that we can buy for ourselves that we're going to really enjoy. So we did last night and unlocked an hour earlier than I thought at 11. So we played from about, 11:15 till past 2 a.m. last night. And we're both playing separate games. We're not playing together. And so my impressions are still really early, which means I have no tips for you because I do not understand this game. And that's a good thing. The main takeaway that I have is that I remember, and maybe my memory's shot on this, but in my memory, the transition from Civ 5 to Civ 6 I remember Civ 6 feeling like Civ 5 2.0, like a pretty direct evolution of that. Civ 7 feels really different in some really good ways, in some ways I'm not sure about quite yet. I know that the main criticism about the game right now is the UI, and I definitely see that. I think the UI is a downgrade in a lot of ways. Sometimes it doesn't present you with information when it asks you to make a choice. So it's like you get asked, like, do you want to do this or do you want to do this? Based on whatever cities and stuff you have set up. It's like, okay, well, I need to go review those cities to see which option is the best. So you got to click out, go click your cities, view that, then go back. It can be a little click heavy, in my opinion. The other thing that I think around a lot of the negative feedback is that you're totally right, Colin. Anytime a new Civ game comes out, everyone hates it, or the hardcore Civ people hate it because it's not like the last one. It's usually has less features than the last one, but it's like, okay, a game that came out 7 years ago, I don't know, that has been continuously updated with 2 expansions. Of course, it's going to have more features than the new version of the game. The main thing that I'm loving right now is that it actually it just feels like a different game. Some major core mechanics that are totally different. The way your cities expand, you build your main city, and then the other cities you build initially are towns that need to be upgraded into cities. Those towns can't be used to build, like, they don't have like their production is sent to the city. So if you want things on those when they're towns, you need to use money. There's a lot of like totally different stuff. Diplomacy is totally different. So with all that being said, as I'm playing, I have no idea what I'm doing. Holly has no idea what she's doing, but I'm having a great time with it so far. Is it possible next episode I'm going to come back and be like, yeah, actually, I'm not as hot on this? Totally. One of the main features of the game is that the game is divided into different eras that are distinctly different. And you can actually like partially change your civilization between eras. I haven't even gotten to that yet. I'm like very close to the end of the first era. So there's going to be some major things that changes with the game. So maybe that's going to be a very negative experience. But what I will say is that last night, learning to play this game, I had to rip myself away from the computer to go to bed because I just wanted to stay up all night playing it because of how fun it was. I recently played a game of Civ 6, and I remember as I was playing it that I was feeling bogged down by each turn. It was like a million decisions as things get more and more complicated. That is good if you're into the real like micromanaging parts of the different games or the different cities and things like that. But Civ 7 has felt really refreshing in that a lot of it is streamlined. And I understand that people, the really hardcore Civ players, aren't going to like that. But I was like, man, I'm really flowing through this and I don't feel weighted down by all the different decisions. But yet at the same time, I'm still making a lot of good strategic decisions and doing different things. So yeah, the UI definitely needs some work. The UI is also, I think, kind of bland and gross. Like, it's just a lot of gray boxes, a lot of blank space. It needs some work. But overall, I think it's great so far. And I've already said this 2 other times, but the main thing I want to emphasize to people is that I am so happy that this feels actually like a different game, because it really changes up the formula in a lot of ways. And I think it would be easy for them to just keep expanding on previous Civ games because it's a tested and proven formula. But this game feels different, and I am loving figuring out the new features of it.
Yeah, I'm looking at video of it now. It's like, it's so beautiful and so complex. Like, I know you can shut off these complexities and look at it more like a Catan board or whatever, or Catan or whatever you say. Like,
oh yeah.
And I know you can even do that in 6. It seems graphically, it seems busier than I want it to be. I was watching. I only became a Civilization person with 5, so I'm definitely like a huge newcomer. Some people think the series was basically over it by 5. So
Yeah, right.
I know that some people think it's a very late time to come. But I was watching. I love World of Let's Plays, and so I was watching on YouTube. I was watching a Let's Play of the 1992 original Civilization on PC, and this time I was 8 years old, and I was very much an NES and SNES world. I wouldn't have understood this game, and I don't. There was an SNES port at some point. I don't remember it, so I wasn't familiar with it. And I was watching it, and I'm like, this is so cool how it's so familiarly Civilization, and how they have been evolving over this for many years, and what is too much, and like what does the audience want and not in these so-called 4X games. Like, some of them I know are even, I think Stellaris and others are like, isn't that the one? Isn't that, or is that a car company?
No, Stellaris. I think that's a game. Yeah.
It's also a car company, I think.
Yeah, there's another that's like the car
There's like
company.
some weird, like, I remember I got in one of my lifts was like a car I'd never heard of before.
Yeah, Polestar or something like that.
Polestar, I think is what it is.
And so it's like, I'm curious about this dance about like what is too complex and what isn't, and how they have to figure all of those things out. So I think it'll take them time to do so, but I think I'm just going to give Civilization 7 a wide berth for now and just continue with 6, because I'm still like really just learning the game in a way. Like I was telling you when you and I were talking about it the other day, I was like, I'm a low end intermediate player of Civilization, I think, at this point. And I'm so confused about there's so many conflicting recommendations of how you play when you watch these different videos and like what you're really supposed to be doing. And so I'm doing my best out there, but we'll continue to monitor the situation. Yes, very addictive. Very addictive.
Oh yeah.
So you got.
I got. I'm honestly not mad about it. Holly's downstairs playing it right now, so we're gonna get dozens of hours in just in this early access period. So, fuck it.
Very well.
I don't care. It's worth it.
Yeah, very well. Very well.
Honestly, when Civ 8 comes out, it will be fun to see the hour count. I love doing like, okay, we have 1,000 hours in this game. Divide that by the price of whatever. How much was your price per hour to where it's down to like just pennies or,
yeah.
you know,
or fractions of a penny at some point. Very well. Chris, we'll finish with you here. It says you're playing Far Cry 6 Medieval Remake and Mafia Definitive Edition.
Yeah, so I finished Mafia Definitive Edition. Enjoyed it. I thought it was like, it's one of those games where I'm just like, this is perfectly paced, man.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
Like a perfectly paced. It did end a little abruptly, not necessarily at the hour count, but just like it only dawned on me once I was like at the very end of that last mission that like, oh, that's the last mission. Like that's kind of nuts. I feel like I expected like more grandiosity, but like it was really good. I loved it. I did start Mafia 2. I didn't write it. I started it and I was like, I'm not feeling it.
It's a step down.
It's a massive step down. And granted, it's a big step down because the first game got so much love, right? In comparison,
yeah,
like
it's 10 years newer technically. You know,
yeah, like Mafia 1 Definitive Edition feels like a PS4 game to me, and then Mafia 2 feels more like it feels like an early PS3 game that like doesn't feel quite that polished. But I also just feel like I'll get some distance between these, so I can come back to it with like a little bit more of like a fresh coat of eyes. Also, something that drove me insane was playing Mafia 2. I couldn't stop seeing it. It uses the Skyrim font for all their subtitles, for like subtitles and like certain things. Just like that's Sky, and I can't stop. Like for the brief period of time that I was playing, I was like, I can't stop feeling like what's happening should be tinged in magic.
I wonder what the font is called. It's probably in the credits of the game, like the license for it.
It's something, but it's absolutely the Skyrim subtitle font, and I recognize it because that meme of just like you're finally awake. I see it all the time, and that's it. Everybody speaks in Mafia, and you see the subtitle. They're like, God damn it, it's such an autistic thing.
That's so interesting.
Like, I don't know why it bothers me as much as it does, but it did. So I put it down for a little bit. I'm still working on a Medieval Remake. I'm at the tail end. I got like, I think I saw like 3 levels left. But I kind of like how long this is. I like jumping in and jumping out, doing a level, leaving, doing a little bit of a mission, and just kind of turning it off. So I've been trying to savor it a little bit because it's such a specific type of video game that doesn't really come that often, and it's very weird, and I love the tone of it. But I was in the mood for I don't know. I was in the mood for like an open world thing, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to jump into, and then I kind of realized that I did have Far Cry 6 just kind of sitting there. I've tried to get into Far Cry at various points throughout the last like several years. I remember we played, what was it, New Dawn, which I think was one of the ones, could be misremembering, but I feel like that was one of the ones that we got early.
Yeah, we might have. Yeah, that was after Far Cry 5.
Yeah. But and so like, and I tried Far Cry 5 a while back, and I just something about the setting. Not necessarily like narratively, it's more just like I'm used to this. Like I've seen, like this is, I get this area. Like it doesn't feel novel to go to, and 4 I just didn't really understand it all. And then 6 is just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, oh, yeah, let me jump into 6. Maybe I'll fall off of it. Maybe I won't. We'll see. It's just I need a mindless kind of action, open world kind of thing to just get lost in and kind of just relax in. And I settled on 6, and I've been playing. I think I'm like 20 hours in or something, and I've just been doing the Far Cry thing, running
Mhm.
around doing treasure hunts and
Towers.
clearing bases and stuff and surveying, like using the camera to tag people. And like, I've been stealthing as much as possible because I love stealth games. And I think that was also something I was looking for. I was like, can I stealth in this?
I love tagging people. I love tagging everyone and then like figuring out how to take them out. It's fun.
Yeah, it's genuinely satisfying. And I actually like the setting a great deal. I think Far Cry works best in tropical settings. I don't know what it is. Like Far Cry 3 hits for me and for that same reason, and 6 hits for me in a different way too, but like also the type of Spanish that they're using I recognize. Like it's distinctly not Mexican. It's distinctly not Spaniard. It's distinctly Caribbean Spanish. So like every time I hear like a coño carajo, I'm like, I'm back home.
These are your people.
It feels it is. It's vaguely Caribbean. And it's exciting. I like it. It's nothing special, I would say. It's nothing like it's no game of the year or anything. It's not blowing my mind as I'm playing it, but it's scratching an itch right now that I specifically have at this very moment. And I'm appreciative of it. And I like too that Far Cry never, as far as I'm aware, and I've looked for it in the settings, some people can correct me if I'm wrong. There's no option at all to drive in third person. And that's something that you could easily do, but they were just like, nah. If you're going to drive, you got to, if you're going to drive or do a vehicle, you're in the cockpit or you're in the driver's seat. Like, deal with it. If you look to your right and you keep driving, you're going to drive forward and just not look forward. And you're going to crash you're going to kill some poor woman's horse. And it'll be all your fault. But I'm enjoying it. I'm 20 hours in. I'm still on the first region. So I think it's Madragada, I think is what they call it, which is like really cool. I'm into it. I like it.
Good.
I like the gameplay. I think it feels good to play. I think the gunplay feels really solid. I'm really enjoying. I like the little animals that you can have. Like I haven't played Far Cry in a long time, so like I've missed this entire subset of systems. So like I didn't even know this was a thing.
Usually you're killing animals.
Yeah, usually you're skinning a fucking pheasant or whatever the hell you're doing in Far Cry. But yeah, you get like an alligator in the beginning. His name is Guapo, and then like you get like a little crippled dog. Immediately after that, he's like a dog, like a wiener dog with no back legs, and he's just on wheels. And his name's Chorizo, and I love him. It's amazing.
Yeah,
I love these. I love this little system. I don't know when they introduced that.
I think this is the one it's introduced in. Yeah.
You think so?
I think so. I don't remember being in 5, but maybe you had dogs or something in 5.
Yeah.
4,
I don't know. I like
definitely
it.
not.
I like it. It's a neat little thing. But I don't know. There's something about the setting and the Spanish vibe of it. Even just the stuff on the radio. It's just like, oh man, there's a vibe to Far Cry 6 that I feel exists unique in a way that like, I don't know if I really felt it in 5 as much or 4, what little I played of it. So it's got its hooks in me. It's nothing amazing, but I'm playing through it 20 hours in. First region. I'm going to try and clear the first region at the very least, like the first big open section of the map. I do find myself doing everything, which I haven't done in a while.
Fun. Yeah.
And it's specifically, and I do want to mention this specifically. The reason this is so satisfying to do right now is because this has been a style of game that is not coming out all the time anymore. There's actual like, it's like novel and kind of fresh in a way that 10 years ago it was not. It was like every game was like this.
Sure.
So I'm into it. But yeah, that's all I've really been playing. I've been dabbling in some other things, but like they're not really worth mentioning.
The rumors about the new Far Cry are not very tantalizing to me. It sounds like Far Cry 6 is probably going to be the last traditional style Far Cry we get, because the new one is rumored to be like on a time limit. You have like your family gets kidnapped and you have to like go and save them in like a certain amount of time, like around this island or whatever territory you're in. So you can't do everything and stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of like the anti Far Cry. Well, one of the things that I love about Far Cry 6 is just parachuting in from quick save or from quick travel. So like you could just quick travel anywhere in the map, but then you can be like 10,000 feet in the air, and then you can just parachute down and like.
It's awesome. Yeah, I had a moment where I was like, I had to destroy, like there were like these 3 different there were these 3 different points where like you had to like destroy poison or like some chemical banisters, and there was one where the chemical banisters were like in the plains. So like I guess like they would like seed chemicals through the planes, and like you had to destroy the planes. And I remember flying, like I just ran into it. I stole one of the planes, flew up in a circle, and crashed it down onto another one, and then parachuted out, and then just like slit a dude's like, dude, it's violent as fuck too. I don't even really remember Far Cry being. I knew Far Cry was violent, but like I guess I just forgot.
It's more visceral now because it's real. It's more real. You know,
you're really hurting these people.
You definitely are. I know a lot of people bust balls about it, but I say it unironically. Like I think Far Cry is fucking sick. Like I love the Far Cry games. I think they are so fun. Like they're just zany as fuck. I understand that they fall into a Ubisoft style trap of you know the same old towers and bases.
Sure,
and
yeah.
But I kind of like that stuff as long. It's the differentiator between a Far Cry game and like The Witcher. And I'm not trying to be facetious and insult The Witcher. I think The Witcher is great, and I know people love it. But it's the reason that I get overwhelmed by the question marks and like all the things you have to do in that game on the map is because it's not as fun to play. Like the straight up reality, in my opinion, is like playing Far Cry is a pleasure. If all the other trappings are not for you, the story's fucking silly and the villains are comical and all the rest. I totally get that. But like just romping around this island, you can see the crisis. You know, the crisis DNA in Far Cry. You can see it. You can like they're very similar ideas, and it's cool to just be presented, not unlike role-playing games are often like this, but they're not this playable, I guess is what I'm saying. Like where you're presented with something and it's also, in my opinion, a high-end FPS in addition to being an open world game. And there's no you're not compromising, in my opinion. It is one of the great FPSs, in my opinion, and one of the great open worlds. And that's you usually don't have an open world RPG that's also like the great action RPG in my experience.
Sure.
So that's what I think. But Far Cry is a very complicated and expensive game to make. So it's hard to create those things repeatedly, and it's sold extremely well, but I'm sure that they didn't make that much money on it because
it's expensive.
It costs a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think there are parts of it that I just refuse to engage with. Like there's like, I don't remember this in Far Cry 3 at all. And chances are it wasn't there at all. But like there's like a camp system in this game where like, and it feels almost like in Destiny when you go to a social space where it's like, okay, here's your hub and you're going to go to the merchant or whatever. And and you have options to like build up your camp or something. Like I have no idea what the fuck's going on here. Like
you're like helping the rebels or something, right? Like solidify their position in these various places.
But for me, I'm like, I could give a fuck. I just want to go Rambo around.
Right.
Like,
it's like when Vice City added like buying property. It's like, all right. But that's not what I'm really here for. Yeah.
Yeah. Like this is not, I don't know. And this camp overwhelms me because there's like a lot of different people to talk to. And sometimes I don't know exactly who to talk to get what. Like I'm almost guiding myself based purely on feeling and vibes. Basically, I was like, that looks like somebody who can fix my gun. Or whatever, and it generally is, but like I don't know why I know that. It's kind of busy in that sense. So there are problems with it, but like you said, I just enjoy playing it, and I do think a lot of it is due to the setting. I think there is something about a tropical setting in Far Cry, like
just like the original, and just like Crisis. There is something in the genetics of it. So when there was like the one in the mountains in Nepal, that was kind of weird. And like it didn't entice me.
It didn't entice me. And the narrative of 5 is what entices me most about it. Because I do think that like what the premise of 5 looks like it would be interesting.
It's
but then
great.
Like I remember playing it. I just remember playing it and feeling like, this is just like I'm in upstate New York or like the Pacific Northwest. And it's like, it's nice to look at, but like it doesn't feel, this game feels like I'm on vacation. Yeah. I guess is the best way that I could put it. It's like, it's fun. I enjoy it, and I'll probably stick with it for a while. I like the way it plays.
I'm a little perplexed by like the hate boner for Far Cry, to be honest. Like I'm not quite. There's not that many of them. Like where it hasn't been. There are a few spinoffs like Primal, and so on, New Dawn. But Far Cry is old. It's like 20 years old, almost. And there's only 6 of them. It's not like it's been that.
It's not Assassin's Creed or anything. Yeah.
So I don't, and I think they're pretty high quality. The second one, I think, is what brought it onto the map the most for people. But
yeah,
and then the third one obviously is like the famous one. But
2 was the one where your gun would jam.
Yeah, your gun would jam. Fucking annoying as hell. I never beat 2. Okay. Oh, all right. So Timothy Tolkien wrote into us, and he's holding you to account, Chris. He says, "Hello, CDC Chris. For the love of God, you are really starting to annoy me. Why don't you finish your games? Please, my OCD is killing me just thinking about all the games you don't finish and why it is always a game that comes up. You say that you have dabbled with it, but can't remember where or when. Please just say you haven't played it and move on, or just finish them and say you did. Chris, sort it out. What do you have to say?
I don't know. I think the way that I view games is a little bit differently than a lot of, and I don't think it's necessarily like superior or anything. I just feel like I think there's a lot of people out there who look at it, at video games as like a narrative or like maybe a story. And, you know, it's just like, once I finish the story, I've satisfied my need for the game. And I think I look at it more like, if I want great story, not that video games can't do it, but like if I'm looking for like a great story specifically, there are various other mediums that I would go to that are not video games, where that's more of a prime focus, like a book or a movie or like a TV show. Like those are the places that I would go for like a truly fantastic narrative. And that's what I'm there for. For a video game, because it's interactive and because it's experiential and it's because it's a various numbers of systems interacting with each other, I'm more interested in the way that I can interact with the systems to get different outcomes. And so for me, I guess there's games that I play for like, maybe like I'll play a game for like 15 hours and I'm noticing that like no matter what I'm doing, I'm getting outcomes that I've seen before, and I've kind of satisfied my curiosity with the game. You know, and I don't necessarily give a shit what happens to these characters. I didn't write this in the write up of games that I was playing because I felt like Colin would literally kill me on the spot. But like I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn Remake as well, while I was looking for some open world game to fill a niche, and I found that I was really liking Horizon Zero Dawn Remake when I skipped past every single cutscene and line of dialogue that could possibly be said.
Yeah, playing it is the best part. There's no doubt about that.
Right. And that's kind of how I interact with it. But like to me, at a certain point, I don't know, it's almost like a meal. Like I eat until I'm satisfied. Like I'm not gonna. There's a couple grains of rice left on the plate. I'm not really gonna freak out about it. If there's leftovers, I'll save it for later.
Yeah.
If I don't, if it goes bad in the fridge, like it'll go bad in the fridge. Like I don't know what to tell you. You know.
Yeah. I actually think I've said this before to you, and I certainly on the show, that it's like the way you actually interact with games is actually probably more normal than the way I interact with games, or maybe even Dustin interacts with games, just based on what we know from achievement and trophy data. Most people aren't beating their games. Most people aren't even getting through half of their games. So there's something kind of authentic about getting away from the pressing OCD that I have to finish the games that I beat. Like if I don't finish a game, it bothers me. And I'll think about it. I know the games over the last few years that I've abandoned because there are so few of them.
Yeah.
Whether it's Banishers, or trying to play Metro Exodus again, like those things stick out to me because they're the very, very rare game where I didn't beat it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I finish a game, I feel like that means it's pretty fucking good. Like it's a damn good game, because there's a lot of games that I just like, I'll pick up and I'll be like, yeah, it's fine. Or it's serviceable and, very well made and decent, but like, it just doesn't capture my attention or it doesn't motivate me. Like Mafia actually like completely like just the story of that game actually was the thing that motivated me to complete it, which I can't say for a lot of things. Like a lot of games just don't really, I don't know. They don't grab me in the way that like they need to grab me. And, I'm sorry if that bothers you guys. Like if you're listening, and I'm sure it does. But for me, it really does not sit in my mind when I don't finish a game at all.
But you have to understand that people get mad about anything. Like,
oh, of course,
people get mad about the way I interact with games. Like they're like, why'd you platinum that game? You didn't really even like it that much. I'm like, I don't really know. I just kind of wanted to, and that annoys the shit out of a subsect of people too. So I think just no matter what you do, there's going to be a subsect of people that are upset with your play style. I remember when I not stopped, but I played way fewer games for a few years than I, like when I was at Kind of Funny, I was just busy and I had a busier life and stuff like that. So I was playing just a lot less, and people were mad about that. So you can't, it's like, I don't know, man.
You can't please anybody. No. I just, my rule is just generally like, I'm going to play a game until I'm satisfied. And that's why, because there are so many games where I've played to completion, and I just remember being like, damn, I would have liked this a lot more if I didn't finish this. Because like it just, even actually, one of the games that I love most probably fits into this, where it's like, when I think about Red Dead 2, as I think about Red Dead 2, I love Red Dead 2, right? But I never think about that final 8 hours that you spend just in the. There's a prologue to Red Dead Redemption 2 that takes like 6 to 8 hours to get through. And when I think about what I love about Red Dead Redemption 2, none of it comes from there. None of it. Like literally 0% of anything that I like about Red Dead 2 comes from that final 8 hours. And so to me, I'm like, damn, that's kind of. I mean, it's cool that I played it, but I actually don't feel like I really got anything out of that. So to me, it's 8 hours wasted. And I think in some ways I look at it, it's like, damn, do I want to finish this? Do I want to finish this game, especially if it's something like a 100-hour game, and feel like I wasted 50 hours? Or do I want to like play and then, you know what? I like this. Let me not ruin this for me. Move on to the next thing that catches my eye.
I think that's totally fair.
And then there are other games too that like I wish I could finish, but did something go wrong?
I was just gonna say I felt that way about Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, where there was a point where I'm like, I kind of think I get this game. It's good.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I want to play anymore.
You
know, like, and that's fine. There are games I want to finish and see, even if it is the same type of thing over and over again. But I was like, I think I've seen enough of Ninja Gaiden 2 Black. It's good. I like it, but I'm also slightly getting bored with it. So I'm out.
Yeah. I'm like 12 or 13 chapters in, and I think there's only 16. So like that's one of those things where it's like, if I'm that close to finishing something, I might think about like, I might as well finish it.
Right.
And I probably will finish. Like Medieval is another thing. Like Medieval Remake, I'm definitely going to finish. And what is it? Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, I'm definitely going to finish because I'm right there anyway. But not every game entices me like that. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm writing a note. Okay. Well, we'll leave it there. All right, my friends, Chris, Hokage, it's time to get into the news for the week. There are only 2 news items this week. These aren't huge news items, but I thought I'd write them out, give them a little bit of respect since they're new game announcements coming to PlayStation. We'll start with number 1. As revealed during leaked screenshots from a secret online test, Microsoft and the Xbox brand are indeed bringing its Age of Empires and Age of Mythology series over to PlayStation 5. Last November, screens of people playing Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition showed PlayStation logos next to their names, the surest sign that the migration of more Xbox titles was well underway. And naturally, these screens weren't fabricated. According to the official Age of Empires website, not only is Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition indeed en route to PS5, but so too is Age of Mythology. Indeed, Age of Mythology Retold will be first, and is the only one with an actual release date. It will arrive on PlayStation 5 on March 4th. For the uninitiated, Age of Mythology Retold is a remake of the original Ensemble Studios developed Age of Mythology, which launched on PC back in 2002. Microsoft acted as publisher of the game, which was the first in a series of releases from a studio they had just bought outright just a year before in 2001. Ensemble Studios no longer exists. They were closed in 2009 after launching their final game and their first native console release, the popular RTS title Halo Wars on Xbox 360. Thus, the remake, which just came to Xbox Series X and S and PC in 2024, was instead led by World's Edge, the team Xbox Studios spawned in 2019 to fulfill some of their lapsed strategy game potential. If you get the premium edition of the game on PS5, you'll gain access to the title 5 days earlier than everyone else on February 27th. You'll also gain access to the Immortal Pillars expansion, which will be new for all players across all platforms. You can also pre-order for some in-game bonuses. Then later this spring, the aforementioned leaked Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition will come to PlayStation 5, though a specific release date has yet to be revealed. Like with Age of Mythology, new DLC will be released alongside the port on all platforms, though they are more reluctant to talk about the release as of yet. Like Age of Mythology, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is a remake of an older RTS also from Ensemble Studios and also led by Xbox Studio World's Edge. Indeed, Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition was their first project, and it launched on PC way back in 2019, with ports for Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S in 2023. The original Age of Empires 2, which was subtitled The Age of Kings, first came to PC back in 1999, and indeed, some of you might remember that there was a PlayStation 2 port of this Microsoft-published game, which Konami bought to the West in late 2001. Strangely, it never saw release on the original Xbox. Are you guys, is there any interest in these series? I'm not an RTS person, so I'm not, to me, I get overwhelmed by real strategy games. They're too stressful. The closest I get to RTS is like tower defense games, like a Plants vs. Zombies or something, but everything else is too much for me. So this is not for me, but I know quite popular on PC specifically. I don't know how it'll do on PlayStation, but Sony or Microsoft's certainly looking to explore. So any interest in these games from either of you?
Not really. The only RTS like game I ever got into was Stronghold, which they just announced they're doing a remaster of Stronghold Crusader later this year that I'm excited about. But those games are always like a hybrid of management and combat, where, if I remember correctly, I think Age of Empires is more combat focused. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and maybe this is a game I would love. But yeah, this game is always, I've never had the opportunity to really play it or check it out. I would imagine that a console is the absolute worst way to play this game, but
I'm looking at it now.
I know they've gotten some clever ways, like Halo Wars on consoles was actually pretty cool and fun to play on console. So maybe there's some of that implemented, but yeah, it's another Xbox game coming over to PlayStation. This one, I think, while is significant, is less worth reading into. As you mentioned in the write-up, Colin, Age of Empires has been on PlayStation before, so through Konami, of course, but this is one that's not as big as something like a Forza Horizon or the inevitable Halo, of course, at some point.
No, and it was also spoiled because that's why, I don't know if you guys remember last year, I was like, why isn't anyone talking about this? Just because this is like one of the things that has great evidence, and no one seemed to really care. There were like screenshots, and it just seemed like fans were like, oh, I'm like, I don't know. It seems like more notable than some of the rumors that have been circulating. I'm looking at video of it. It looks cool, but I think it's going to be very overwhelming. I wonder if you can play on a mouse on, and maybe a keyboard on PlayStation. I don't know. Chris, are you interested in these games at all?
No, RTS, and I know people, because I think we were talking about Civ, and I called it an RTS, and people got mad. But
yeah.
I don't know, the isometric kind of flying camera over a big landscape and managing things, and I don't know, it's not necessarily the gameplay experience that I look for in really anything. There's some that have caught my attention. I think I played a long time ago, I played Command and Conquer Red Alert, but like they're very like faint images. I don't even I assume that that's a real-time strategy game.
Oh, look,
and there's no shot that I was playing that correctly, by the way. I must have been like 6 or 7 or some absurdly young age playing that game.
Oh, did you play the PS1 port?
No, I played it on computer, on PC.
Yeah, Red Alert's from 1996. It is a real-time strategy game, developed by Westwood Studios.
So I have some experience with that. I played Halo Wars and Halo Wars 2. And I liked those, but like not enough to really delve into. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, I like this because it's happening in a universe that I care about, and it's perfectly well and good. I don't know if I would really get into it in any other capacity. So that's a genre that's been kind of like, I've accepted that that's not my ballpark.
Yeah, I'm looking at gameplay. It looks fun. The specifically Age of Empires.
Yeah, I wish I liked it. You know what I mean?
I'm sorry.
I wish I liked it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it looks cool. Again, it's just the real time nature of it that makes it very stressful to me. If it was turn based, but then the games would probably take forever. It looks cool, but yeah, I don't think I'd be able to handle this.
Yeah.
Okay. How do I get rid of this gameplay? It's like all over my screen. Where's the mouse? There it is. Sometimes I can't find the fucking cursor on this real estate, this screen real estate. All right. The other big news this week, this was exciting. This is a smaller thing, but big for me. Number 2, in a surprise announcement buried in a PlayStation blog post written by Capcom and ostensibly about 2026's return of Onimusha in the form of Onimusha Way of the Sword, as well as the upcoming release of Monster Hunter Wilds. There's some great news. Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny, considered by most Onimusha fans as the best game in the original 4-game run on PlayStation 2, is being ported to PlayStation 4. However, potential timing seems a little vague, as Capcom only promises that the port, which they're removing the 2 from and simply calling Onimusha Samurai's Destiny, will come to market sometime, quote, ahead of the launch of Onimusha Way of the Sword, end quote. So it could be a 2026 release as well, though 2025 is probably more likely. Like the original Onimusha, Onimusha 2 hails from a generation where games could be and were made much quicker. There were barely 14 months between the release of the 2 games on PlayStation 2 in their native Japan, and while the original launched on PS2 in the spring of 2001, its sequel arrived in the fall of 2002. Developed internally at Capcom and produced once more by the father of Mega Man, Keiji Inafune. Onimusha 2 follows a different protagonist than the original and was well met upon release. And unlike the original Onimusha game, Onimusha Warlords, which ultimately got ported to Xbox in 2002 and then to PS4 in a low-end remaster version in early 2019, Onimusha 2 has never seen the light of day anywhere since the first game of the PlayStation 2, neither on other consoles or on PC. So this will be the first time many people have experienced it. Now, all that remains is the possibility of ports of the remaining 2 mainline Onimusha games, 2004's Onimusha 3 Demon Siege and 2006's Onimusha Dawn of Dreams, both from PlayStation 2. Though it has often been postulated that there could be serious issues getting Onimusha 3 in particular ported to modern hardware, as it prominently starred French actor Jean Reno, even right on the original box art. Ryan Del Vecchio wrote in and said, "What's up, CDC? Question mostly for Colin, but all can chime in. How's the homie feeling now that Onimusha 2 Remastered has been announced? Thanks. This is great news. Onimusha 2 is really, really solid. Sequels are often very good. To sequels to strong games where you can get stronger. Assassin's Creed to Assassin's Creed 2 is always the example people like to use.
Yeah.
I'm really amped about this. Dustin, I thought about you because I don't know. Do you own this one on PS2?
I don't think so. But I did just over Christmas break play Onimusha, the PS4 port they did, and I had no experience with it, and it was fucking awesome. It's obviously very dated in a lot of ways, but it was neat to play this kind of alternate Resident Evil style game. So when they announced this at that Capcom stream that they were doing Onimusha 2, I was like, this is exactly what I wanted before the new Onimusha game. So I'm really excited. I will definitely be playing this, especially since, as you said, Colin, everyone thinks that this is much improved. And in fact, I've heard a lot of people say that 2 and 3 are both very good, but hopefully they do that as well. I'd play all.
Yeah, 3 I'm not crazy about. I mean, it's good. I think 2 and 4 are the best ones, but 4 is pretty obscure. It came out really late on PS2. Not really late. I mean, it was before PS3 launched, but pretty late. And it was a nice return to form, but it felt a little archaic by that point, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about this though. Hopefully later this year, I think would make sense. Hopefully they get it out even way sooner and they get them all out. I mean, it would be, what would be ideal is if they got all 4 of them out.
Right.
That would be ideal for them too. I'm sure they would love that. Chris, are you going to play Onimusha 2? Did you play it back in the day?
No, so I played a little bit of the remaster or that remake that they did.
Yeah.
Or what would you call it? I don't even remember it.
I called it in the write-up a low-end remaster. It's basically a port with like a solid frame rate. And I think it's natively in widescreen, although the original might have been in widescreen. I don't really remember. I didn't have a widescreen TV. So
I played a little bit of it back then, but like it didn't grab me at that time. I didn't think it was bad or anything. I was just like, I could tell that I was like, I'm not really in the mode for this. And then I just kind of forgot to get back to it. And I actually have it sitting on my cross media bar on my PS5 now because of the the Way of the Sword announcement. It's like, oh, that looked really cool. I should play through these, and this is pretty good news. I was probably gonna play that after I was done with Ninja Gaiden because I'm kind of looking right now for more digestible, like smaller games that I could just kind of finish.
Yeah, Onimusha is quick, the first one.
Yeah, so that looks like it's probably gonna be after once I'm done with Medieval and no, what the fuck? What else was I playing? Oh my god! Oh, Ninja Gaiden. Once I'm done with those 2, I'm probably gonna jump into Onimusha and then something else. But I have no real experience with Onimusha. I just knew it from afar because I think my friends had it. I think I watched them play a little bit of it, but like my understanding of it's very, very minimal. Like, which is exactly kind of how I want it going into.
Yeah, you were both really young when it came out. Yeah, I'm trying to think like the original Onimusha is like maybe 6 hours or something. Like, if you would do everything, there's like a whole optional like arena mode, and there are different difficulty levels.
Yeah, but what would that be like? It's probably like a 15-hour game maximum.
Yeah, like if you did everything, it would take you 15 hours. I would say at the most.
On how long to beat Onimusha Warlords is 4.5 hours. I remember beating it in 2.5 sittings, and one of those was a short play session. So,
yeah, I mean that's the era it comes from. Games, if anything, that's a little short. But there always was stuff to keep you. There are ways to beat it without doing certain things. You'll see when you play it, Chris. If you
Yeah.
If you get into it, because there's like things you can upgrade, and I know that there is like a pretty nice collection of trophies. I'm actually looking at the trophies because I earned them all back in January 2019, but I never platinumed it because you have to beat it. Yeah, the Dark Realm, that's like the optional part of the game, and then you have to beat the game without enhancing swords, without enhancing jewels, beat the game on ultimate difficulty, beat the game without using medicine, beat the game in less than 3 hours, beat the game and get an S rank. So there's a lot. That's very Capcom. Very Capcom.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that from Resident Evil, especially.
Well, it reminds me of Dead Rising, and just all the different.
Oh yeah, Dead Rising as well.
Do all this weird, just a weird optional ways to finish games.
Yeah, when I played Dead Rising Deluxe or whatever, I wasn't necessarily anticipating platinuming it. I just wanted to play it, and then I ended up getting sucked into that whole like beating it in all these weird ways, including that really impossible mode that they made so much easier in this one, where the one where it took you like 16 hours if you played it, and you couldn't stop, so you had to like either just pause the game or do it all in one sitting. It was the one to survive for a week, and they made it so that you can save in the new one, which is just a huge deal. Okay, so those are the games coming out. We got a couple of Age of games, RTS games coming shortly. Onimusha 2 being ported shortly, hopefully to the point of the Onimusha Warlords 2019 port to PS4, which was very lo-fi. I hope that Capcom is going to put a little more effort into this one. And I don't mean that it was bad. It's just like, let's get some accoutrements in there and not just have it be a game running on an emulator, which is basically what the first one was. It's because they've done such a nice job with some of their other stuff. So hopefully they treat this with a little more love. And maybe the entire idea is to then get a collection of Doom-like or Turok-like games that are out there now that you can also buy in these collections. So we'll see. I'm so glad they're going back to it. I am truly a big Onimusha fan from my high school and college days. Okay. Let's end the show as we always do with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Remember, if you support us over there, part of your perks are you get access to the news feed where all the different posts go, and there are threads for all of our different shows in that news feed that are posted and then deleted as needed. You just put your inquiries in there. I tear through them. You've already heard a bunch of them throughout the show. I have 6 more here. Let's start with Caleb Greer, who wrote in and said, "Greetings, gentlemen. This isn't exactly games related, but I'm interested to hear what you guys think, especially Colin, of Rooster Teeth's return. Bernie Burns, after selling the company at its height in 2014 and retiring to a farm in Scotland in 2020, has purchased the brand and lots of its IP for pennies on the dollar, it seems. Now he's reviving the brand with full control and wants to return it to its roots as a smaller entity. Bernie's an incredibly smart dude, and he pioneered the early internet community and media spaces, but I'm curious what you all think of the wisdom of the decision. In recent years, he started a morning show with his wife for fun called Morning Somewhere, and it has a Patreon. Thanks as always." I worked with Rooster Teeth for when I was at Kind of Funny, and I know them all personally. And actually, his wife Ashley worked at IGN when I worked there as well. She was the first, or this. No, I guess it would have been the second community manager we had ever hired, and she was there for a while. She was nice. She was a nice girl. And Bernie Burns was always very, very sweet person to me. Very nice guy. I don't know. The thing is that Bernie sold the company to Full Screen, I guess, which was Warner, and made a lot of money doing it. I assume his cut would have been in the tens of millions probably for that deal, at least. Mm-hmm. So he lives a very comfortable life, which is awesome. Good for him. And they have room to kind of navigate. And if I know anything about the cost of online sort of IP and assets, is that it's that the prices wildly vacillate. As I've said before, IGN was bought when I was a freelancer and intern by Fox for $650 million and then sold, I guess that would have been 7 years later for a small fraction of that, like a complete loss. So these things vacillate wildly. And I think people like Bernie got out while the going was really good. And so what stops you from taking a fraction of the money than you then just made from the deal? You've probably done pretty well for yourself with some investments if you're prudent with your money and shrewd with it, and just reinvest it and buy the thing that you started back. And you kind of got it for free in some sense, if you really think about it. Like, you sold it at the top of the market, made an enormous amount of money. Now you're buying this thing that is literally bankrupted and worth very little. And creditors will get a fraction of their money. They want whatever they can get. So from that perspective, it's a pretty shrewd thing, I think. But I don't know the wisdom in it. If he keeps it small and intimate, then it's great. I think that if they go the G4 route, which I just think he's too smart. He's not like the dummy at Comcast that gave the keys of the kingdom to his son or something like that and ran G4 into the ground, like that was ever going to happen. That was and like it cost like hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
If they keep things kind of rational and reasonable, and that means not like the old Rooster Teeth. I am very familiar with the old Rooster Teeth. I used to go there in Austin to record things when I was with Kind of Funny. It was a fucking airplane hangar, a series of them, you know, and it's a lot of people. Like when I was there, I was like, I don't even really know what you, and I feel this way about every company, frankly, but it's like, I'm not even sure what half of you do. And it's not for me to know, but like, how could you all be working here? It's a video game, like content thing. I can understand 10 people or 20, but they had hundreds at one point. So as long as his ambition is really tamped down to something intimate and small, maybe even totally remote, where he has a series of shows, maybe he gets Achievement Hunter going again, or whatever the case might be, and some of his old friends, Gus and, you know, all those guys, it's like, that could be cool. And I think people would be excited about that. But I think the second that you have a physical imprint, the second that you get a studio space, the second that you start having real expectations of making real money off of this, I just think it all goes away again. Because I just think reality has very rapidly changed. And there are people that are streaming out of their bedrooms or doing things like we're doing here out of our home offices or whatever, with no overhead and with micro communities, and it's just it's chip damage. It's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I stand. I saw that and I was like, that's surprising, but not really, because it might have even cost literally hundreds of thousands of dollars for all we know to do. I wouldn't overestimate how much it cost. It's a defunct thing. It's dead.
Right.
And it would really only be alive with very specific people, and he's one of them. So what do you guys think about this, Chris?
Yeah, no, I think it's made me happy to see him. We haven't seen him in a long time. He kind of like fucked off to like a farm in like Scotland or something. Like he had like a weird, like almost like a Dave Chappelle going to Africa type thing. Like he just vanished. But I have been keeping up with that Morning Somewhere show that he does every so often, and it's really nice. It's like a 10-minute daily show where you just kind of get a glimpse of stuff. It's he's always been one of those people that like I always respected him a great deal, because there was something about him that felt like he was smart, and like he seemed like a genuine dude. Like it didn't seem like he was like putting on anything. It seemed like that's actually him. And he was always part of the rotation of people. He was specifically like, I remember the Rooster Teeth podcast was like the only podcast that I would listen to, and it was specifically when it was him and like a very select few of other people. If it was anybody else, I was like not really listening to it. So I like Bernie Burns a lot. I think it was probably a pretty smart move. He probably got it for really pennies on the dollar. And the best observation that I could make is when the Colin already made it, was like, this is really something that could. Rooster Teeth is ostensibly dead without people like Bernie Burns. And he's really the only person that I could see making a move like this and having it be meaningful in any way. Like if this was bought by some other dude, I would have been like, why would you even buy this? But I actually think it has potential to exist again, even if it's in a small kind of micro, like a way smaller version than it ended up being. In a meaningful capacity, I could see it happening now that he's back in it.
Right.
I even saw that video that he did where he like walked into the old studio space and he turned the lights on and everything was gone. He's like, where'd everybody go? I like it. I like Bernie Burns a lot. I hope it works out.
Yeah, me too. I think more seasoned veterans in the space is going to be good for the quality of the content. I think he was a pioneer of web series and web video. I mean, it goes without. I just don't think a lot of younger people, or maybe people just don't think about this, but online video was kind of bespoke and strange even in the era of cable internet. It really wasn't until YouTube that you weren't watching things on weird video modules or downloading QuickTime videos. And
yeah, so
to invest in that like he did with Red versus Blue and other things, and for other early, like Mega 64 was one of them.
Screw Attack.
Screw Attack was definitely one of them. It's like that's like pretty interesting in my opinion. Like there was a lot of confidence and foresight that we take for granted, but the infrastructure for it didn't really exist, and really only exists because of one website today. It's not to say that there's not Vimeo and Rumble and all these other things. It's just to say they're not relevant. It really was like people reading the tea leaves in such a specific way, and it really worked out. So having someone with that level of instinct, I think, is good for the industry. I just think, but on the other hand, I always think about, and I brought this up in the past, that one of the peculiar things about our relationship with them was, I remember them, and I've said this before, they offered us like a loan of $1.4 million split into two halves of $700,000 over 2 years. When we got related, when Kind of Funny started being in their ad network or whatever. And we were like, why? And they're like, oh, for like growth. And it's like, but what growth? I remember being really perplexed by that. Like, you're throwing money at things. You don't even really understand what you're doing. Now, yeah. I don't think that was necessarily him. I think that the company was well out of his grasp by that point because it was sold and other people were in charge. But I just think about that. Like, that's the stupid money shit that you got to stay away from. Sure. It's not to say we wouldn't have paid them back or it would have been worth it, or maybe we would have, but it's like, I was just like, we're wildly profitable. Why would we want your money? We don't want your money. And I remember being a hard no on that. And we ultimately were a no on that. I'm like, no way. We don't want to get in bed with other people's money. We don't need it. So like that instinct to just dump money into things is sometimes good, but often specious. And I just think that as long as they stay away from that old trend, which I think was more Full Screen and Warner Brothers than them.
Yeah.
But that's what they gave their company to. So
yeah, no, for sure. I think even in that capacity, I remember maybe some crossover fans might correct me, but I remember there was a distinct point kind of early on where even Bernie kind of took a step back from the CEO position specifically because he was like, I don't want to do this. So the company was kind of like out of his hands for a while.
Yeah.
But he was still like on paper the CEO.
I don't blame him.
Being a CEO sucks.
I'm sorry?
No, I agree. See, being a CEO kind of sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. I'm the CEO of a small enterprise and I want to kill myself half the time. Like, there's always just something to deal with. I can't imagine having dozens or hundreds of people. It's like, geez, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared. I'm not equipped for that at all. Dustin, what are your thoughts on the revival of Rooster Teeth?
Yeah, I think that within the right scope, it could be potentially really successful. I really respect bringing back the old logo. Honestly, why they even changed that original logo.
Insane.
Completely insane. And the fact that that's the leading thing, it's like back to the roots of what the company's about. And hopefully with the people in its roots, I think that would be the key to its success. And yeah, it's great. I remember going to Rooster Teeth's website and watching Red versus Blue, or like having them downloaded on my computer pre-YouTube. And they really were like just so ahead. And I mean, probably one of the reasons why I'm interested in doing stuff like this. I was never a huge Rooster Teeth fan, but Red vs. Blue in particular in its early days I was obsessed with. So I hope it works out for them because I've always thought that Bernie seemed like a really respectable, cool guy. So wishing nothing but the best for them.
Yeah, me too. We'll be watching this with great interest.
Great interest.
Cameron O'Neill wrote in and said, hey, CDC. According to The Gamer and quarterly earnings reports, Nintendo has now sold 1 million or more copies of 72 first-party games. Yet their games rarely, if ever, go on sale. Is this a strategy PlayStation should take with their first-party titles? It seems like PlayStation could be leaving a lot of money on the table and is training their player base to wait for sales. If the expectation is that first-party titles never go on sale, then maybe their budget issues wouldn't be as pronounced. What do you all think? Could never putting first-party titles on sale help PlayStation's net profitability? I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Dustin, let's stay with you.
I think that you have to look at, they probably crunch numbers and it's like, well, if you've already paid for the game and everything now is profit, then if we can get a sale for 40 that we wouldn't get at 60, I don't think PlayStation games just have the same cachet as Nintendo.
Yeah, no doubt.
They also don't have the nostalgia factor. So I think that while I think that there are some games that it's like better to keep or better serving the corporation, right, to keep at a high price. We do see this with certain From Software games. I don't know if it's Activision, but Sekiro is a game that I don't know has ever been below $30. And it came out years ago at this point. So I don't think it would work out well for them. But I think at the same point, too, you really got to be careful about how quickly you put things on sale and for how much. I don't know if this is the case so much anymore, but Ubisoft games were notoriously the joke. It's like never buy them on launch day because within 4 weeks, it'll be $20 off. So there's got to be some level of like confidence that if you're buying something for full price, that it's not going to drop quickly. So I'm not sure, but I'm leaning no.
Chris, what do you think about this? Do you think Sony games are too cheap, too accessible? Will they make more money if they put a higher value proposition on their titles?
I'm kind of the mind, why not? Like, why don't to me the argument of like, oh well, you know, they don't have the same cachet or they can't demand it. I really think is only true because they haven't. And there's an expectation that like, oh well, you've never committed to this before, so now to start doing it now comes across as like, well, the fuck are you doing? It's almost like poser energy. But at the same time, they did have free online for PS3, and then they were just like, no, we're actually going to start charging people now. And then I remember people being like, that's a bad. They're not going to get away with that, and then they did. So I really think it's a matter of like whether or not you're just going to do something. If you do it, I think it'll work out. I just don't know if they necessarily want the bad press, or I think it just kind of speaks negatively in like the culture of like what might have, like there might be like an image problem with that. I think after going so long not doing that. But I'm of the mind, if I were in their position, I probably would be saying, so like, listen, why are we putting God of War on sale at all? Or if we do it, like it's never going to be below 40. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I would almost maybe argue in favor of. It's like you can have a sale, but like you're not getting this for below $40.
I agree with you. That's what I was thinking too, as you both were talking. Was I think having a regimen of games getting a little bit cheaper after launch is good. It reminds me of you go into the movies back in the day to see a film in the theater, and then it's in the video store. You can kind of get it a little cheaper. You waited. It's not going to be you're not going to be part of the conversation or whatever kind of things are important. But I think undervaluing your games is really bad, and I do think that they do that sometimes, and I think that's good. They crunch the numbers. I think things get a little urgent sometimes with some of these companies. I think that's why Ubisoft games get slashed in price so quickly sometimes, is because they're like, they get scared and they need to make their money back and they want to drive volume. But then I see, and we've brought this up many times now, but like the fact that I could buy Mass Effect Legendary Edition for $5 during a sale, it's as I said on the show when I brought that up, I'm like, what is really the point of selling that at $5? That's insanity. Like it's like those deep Steam sales where like, this is cool, but why even bother?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying games shouldn't be cheaper or more value driven, but at $5, you're walking away from the equation with $3.50. If you sell 10,000 copies at that price, you've made like $30,000. Your Electronic Arts. Have like some value behind your games. Charge $20 for it or something. So I agree with you with these games. If they're $70, it would be, I don't want to say it would be cool because I don't really give a shit. I mean, it's up to them. But for a game to not even really go below 50, if it's a AAA first party game of the current generation, and treat it with a little bit more respect. So give a little bit of flexibility. Don't be quite as intransigent as Nintendo is with not moving the prices. But there is such a thing as undervaluing and kind of insulting your hardcore customers by doing that. But I just couldn't believe the Mass Effect thing for $5. I was like, that is just preposterous. That's why I bought it. I was like, that's preposterous.
Yeah, it's great for you.
Right. But it doesn't, but it makes no sense. Great for me, but it's like, geez, dude, like, you almost want to be like, EA, have a little self-respect.
Have some fucking...
Like, Jesus Christ, it could be $19.99 and then that would have still been a great deal.
Right.
And this comes from someone who sells $10 retro games. I'm not trying to like burst the bank of anyone. I'm just saying that certain games I think deserve a little bit more than that, but they're not, like you said, Dustin, they're not Nintendo. Although I think there is a handful of Sony games that are of the highest possible quality, even I think higher than Nintendo's quality in a lot of ways, although they make very different games. You can't rely on that as much. I also will say, though, there are important things on the other side of this. Nintendo still makes far less money on games than Sony does. they're able to do this because the 72 games that they sold that they own are probably 72 of what 100 games total that would have sold them more than 1 million copies on Switch. In other words, there are many, many, many games coming to PlayStation from all sorts of targets that sell 1 million copies. It's not incumbent on Sony to make those games. They just exist all over the platform. So I think that the stakes are a little different. In other words, Nintendo has so much more riding on making sure to get the most out of those games because they are not getting nearly as much from their partners.
Sure.
And so it really is incumbent on them to keep the price steady. It's interesting though that them not moving the price is a more modern thing. I think people take that for granted. Like back in the NES and SNES era, they would very quickly reprint things and even change the box art and such. And like Metroid, this as a collector, Dustin, there's 2 Metroids, right? And that second Metroid was not a full price game when it came out. And even games like Super Mario All-Stars were not really that expensive when they came out because they were older. And 64 games would drop in price, but usually in clearance and not necessarily the first party stuff. But it really was a product of, I want to say, the Switch, really. I mean, because even Wii games started to fall out. So I think they've been very smooth operators in business since identifying various strategies that work specifically for them. Of course, Iwata with Blue Ocean and the Blue Ocean strategy with Wii was very fruitful for them. They just kind of get the places. And I think they got to that place where like, we have to show a little bit of respect for our own library, but we can't rely on anyone else. They don't have a closed garden, but it's pretty close to being that. And what would be some big hits on the machine that they didn't make? Apart from the obvious stuff, like the free-to-play stuff, Minecraft.
Right.
There are probably 25 games. Stardew Valley. Shit like that. Anyway. Good question, Cameron. And the answer is, I think we all agree. Just have a little bit of self-respect with some of this stuff. CT Fire wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, Spider-Man 2 just launched on Steam with less than stellar player counts and reviews. While there is no doubt that this is due to the lack of optimization of Spider-Man 2, there seems to be a trend of PlayStation single-player games selling worse with more and sooner releases. With the rise of PC handhelds and Steam Machine 2.0 rumored to be in development, should PlayStation continue to release its games on PC where those devices will directly compete with PlayStation consoles and handhelds? Is the juice still worth the squeeze? Thanks for reading my question and have a great day." Thank you. These new Steam Machine rumors are true. Or I'm sorry, and not true. Are interesting. I don't know if they're true or not. They're interesting if they are true. And I wouldn't be surprised. It's like, why not? That you're sitting on a bundle of cash, more cash than anyone you really even knows because they're private. Why wouldn't you try to kind of eat away at this group? But I still feel like we're talking about 2 separate groups of people. And I continue to bang the drum that I feel like the diminishing returns on PlayStation releases probably come from, at least in part, the lack of novelty. It's just not novel anymore. If you released these games in any order, I feel like the sales would have been stronger in the front and weakest in the back. Days Gone was sold so well on PC, not by virtue of being Days Gone, which I like Days Gone a lot, but it's because it was one of the first ones. Horizon Zero Dawn is the same thing. By the time you get to Spider-Man 2, I just think it's not that interesting anymore. And so then you're cutting out, I think, a major. It's very similar to the Xbox stuff. Like, the stuff sells probably pretty well because it's just weird. Eventually, that's not going to be the case. And they won't be able to count on that anymore. So I think there's something to be said about that. Spider-Man 2 and the Nix's port is supposed to be pretty bad. I don't understand what that's all about or why they felt compelled to release it. Like, who's putting a gun to your head and telling you got to release this thing right now? But I feel like the only way to really know at this point, Dustin, we'll go to you first, is to release the games at the same time. And then you really would know, and they would at least know behind the scenes, like, does it matter? How is it doing? Because I just feel like it's not mattering that much. It mattered for Helldivers, but I think nothing else. I don't think it's causing people to not buy or buy a PlayStation. I don't think it's selling an enormous amount of units that make it worth the squeeze in some sense. I think the returns are diminishing. And I think the games are still really good, so there's got to be something else. What do you think?
I'm honestly not really sure, but I know that Sony seems to think that keeping the game exclusive on PlayStation 5 for a period is important for the hardware. So I don't know if there's research that backs that up. I'd imagine there is some degree, but these things are constantly changing, and the market's always changing. So maybe it doesn't matter as much now than it did before. I still really think that as much as PC and console are similar devices and that they can be used to play video games, I think that the experience of playing a PC and playing a console are so different and appealing to different types of people, and that's why they will either remain siloed or as users of both, like myself. So I could see certain instances where there are certain games that PlayStation release where it's like they'll make less on me because I'll buy them on PC instead of PlayStation. Helldivers as an example. But honestly, I don't even know if that really matters to them. And then as far as the writing, what he says about should they continue to release PC games, I am curious about the idea of a future where Steam Machine, whatever Valve does, really does take off and could create a situation that would make them nervous, and that there's a device that can play both PlayStation and Xbox games and can have a Game Pass or whatever. I think that's so far away, though, that it's not worth changing your current strategy, especially because as cool as a Steam box could be, that's based on the new technologies that Valve has developed through Steam Deck, while I think it's really cool and appealing to a person like me that's just curious and weird shit like that, I think it's a long way off before it has true wide commercial appeal outside of fucking dorks like myself that want a living room PC. So maybe not, though. I think Steam Deck is, while it still is niche, it has surprised me how more wide appealing it is as a device, and maybe something that's a little more console like could do that. So it's hard to say. Colin, have you heard any of these rumors? I've seen them float around on Twitter, but I didn't look into them deeply about GT being canceled
and Demon Souls.
Demon Souls. I didn't know if there was any validity to that.
I didn't report because I don't know the nature of those sources, but I did see those floating around that those ports have been pulled. Demon Souls, I don't give a shit about it either here nor there, but Gran Turismo to me is strange because I feel like, remember we had Z28 on a long time ago, the racing guy, and he kind of opened my eyes to the fact that there is like a massive PC car racing enthusiast group that play games that like we've never even heard of. And it would be weird that Gran Turismo wouldn't want to enter that, but Gran Turismo is so vital to PlayStation. I mean, Gran Turismo is amongst the best-selling games of every console they've ever made. So, including the best-selling game on a couple of them. So, I think that they might be hesitant to give that up because, I mean, that would be a big thing. It's very similar to what we were saying about MLB The Show just last week, right? About people just casually becoming PlayStation fans without really realizing it because it's the only way to play a baseball game, and Gran Turismo is so well respected. I don't know. I don't know the nature of those. I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, either way, but I want to see them be a little more aggressive just because I think that they don't really have all the information yet. And then they can really make informed decisions based on having a greater spectrum of information about how things do. Do you have anything you want to add to this, Chris?
I think you guys touched on most of it. I think at a certain point this will be a problem, like putting these games on PC, because there will be just ultimately these console friendly or living room friendly machines and devices that will essentially have the best of both worlds. But I'm kind of with Dustin where I feel like that's so far away from now that I don't necessarily see the reason to have a knee-jerk reaction about it right now.
Fair enough. I've always been a little bit more bullish than a lot of people, so I understand that with this particular thing. Jake zeroed in and said, why has there been so little concern for how Sony's live service initiative could negatively affect the industry, but so much for Game Pass? Whether or not it's in Sony's interest to pursue live service games, shouldn't we be concerned that live service could take over the industry and supplant demand for single-player games? Jake, what universe are you in? That's happened already. Sony, if anything, had the exact opposite games that were countervailing to the overall trends for years and are probably the only real reason why there isn't a greater hold of multiplayer and games as a service games because of their single player fare. Game Pass is a different beast entirely than what you're talking about with live service games, because the live service game stuff, as we said earlier, using the term death by a thousand cuts, like the live service stuff happened from a bunch of different angles and then a bunch of different success stories, from your Call of Duty Warzones to your Rocket Leagues to your Fall Guys to whatever. I mean, a fucking shit ton of things. I go on the PlayStation Store all the time. There's so many free-to-play games, like games as a service, and then I go look at them and I'm like, this has been reviewed by 50,000 people. And I'm like, what is this game? I've never heard of this. And then it's like 17 people on your friends list have played it. I'm like, okay. Game Pass was a disruptive, and again, I think a reasonable and smart move, as I've said many times, but a one-side, unilateral attempt to disrupt the way games are bought and sold by a moneyed interest, one of them. It wasn't a thing that everyone kind of came to the conclusion together or even came to the same answer. It's like in nature, I guess genetic science and studies have shown that, like, eyes don't all come from one ancestor that had eyes, but have come up many times in evolution. In other words, we all share a same common, evolutionary ancestor, and then it split off, and then a bunch of those different splits discovered eyes on their own as a way to see. And that, to me, is games as a service. It's like everyone stumbled upon this answer that came from certain places, iOS, PC, and so on and so forth. While Game Pass, I think, was an unnatural fit and a way to that Game Pass is the very definition of disruption. Games as a service has been very organic. That's what people want. Unfortunately, I don't know that people want Game Pass, or at least very many. I mean, I think the numbers show that that's clearly not the case. But so I see these as two very different things. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say here, but
no,
different arguments. Jacob wrote in and said, Andrew Wilson's recent comments surrounding Dragon Age the Veilguard's disappointing sales — Andrew Wilson, of course, is the CEO of EA — seem to insinuate that the lack of a shared world or games as a service features are partly to blame. Is this the wrong lesson to learn from Veilguard's failures? Am I crazy, or are quality single-player games with deep RPG systems, decision-making, and strong writing selling better than ever? Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 just sold 1 million copies on the day of release. Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring were massive successes despite being challenging, complex, and relatively uncompromising in their vision. A game like Metaphor found success on a smaller scale by having strong identity and building off the studio's prior titles. Hell, even prior Dragon Age titles sold well and remain well regarded in terms of mechanical depth and storytelling. I wouldn't undercut Metaphor. I'm pretty sure Metaphor is sold kind of comparable to Kingdom Come in terms of how it was moving. Probably a shorter tail, though, because they have such a hardcore audience paying attention. Although Kingdom Come does as well. Did you guys see these comments from Andrew Wilson? Dustin, what do you have to say about why the Veilguard might have failed and what they're missing about why it failed?
Yeah, it's hilarious to think about, Andrew Wilson sitting back in his office and be like, man, if only Dragon Age would have been more like Anthem, maybe it would have succeeded. To me, this just speaks like they need to point the blame at something, because I don't know how they can honestly believe this. Maybe it's a thing for their shareholders that they want more live service stuff, and so they can kind of confirm, like, oh yeah, maybe we should have done the thing you wanted and make a more live service. Dragon Age the Veilguard, I think a lot of people want to point to the overbearing woke stuff as the reason it failed. I think that was certainly part of it, but I think there's also just a possibility that it's just not a very good game, or not, and the things they showed did not look very appealing to people, thus resulting in, less sales. I think the RPG landscape has changed, where you have huge successful games like, he mentions Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, and a game like this, maybe in a different era, could have been more successful, but it's just simply not up to snuff with the quality of other contenders now. So there are many reasons why Dragon Age failed. Not being a live service game is not one of them.
To be fair, I feel like, and I brought it up because I wanted to get the exact quote. I don't know if you guys remember, it was like a year or two ago where there was like this controversy about the Ubisoft executive saying like, you won't own your games and you'll like it kind of situation.
Yeah.
And then remember we went and looked and it's like, he didn't say that.
Yeah.
Like, why is everyone reporting like, it's kind of similar here where he is saying this, but he's really kind of saying something else too. So I pulled up this Push Square story. Dragon Age the Veilguard failed because it wasn't live service, EA CEO seems to suggest. And the story says, quote, according to Andrew Wilson, the CEO at EA, one of the reasons why Dragon Age the Veilguard didn't meet its internal sales expectations could be because it didn't ship as a live service product. Speaking during the firm's recent quarterly earnings call, Wilson said the RPG, quote unquote, did not resonate with an audience that, quote, increasingly seeks shared world features and deeper engagement. While the CEO didn't directly link the 2 points, his comments suggest to sell the game beyond its core audience, it needs to merge, quote, high-quality narratives with the evolving demands of players, end quote, which are apparently those shared world mechanics and deeper engagement. He continues, quote, Dragon Age had a high-quality launch and was well-reviewed by critics and those who played. However, it did not resonate with a broad enough audience in this highly competitive market. He continues, quote, historically, blockbuster storytelling has been the primary way our industry has brought beloved IP to players. The game's financial performance highlights the evolving industry landscape and reinforces the importance of our actions to reallocate towards our most and significant and highest potential opportunities. So he's not really saying that Dragon Age should have been live service. What he's saying is that they probably shouldn't have made it at all. I think that's kind of like more what I'm getting out of it. They're saying like it's just not there. Like what we're trying to do is that the audience isn't there for it. Because I agree with you, Dustin, like the wokeness, there's a wokeness factor to this game that probably hurt it on the market a little bit, but I don't think so. Like, I just don't think that many people cared. I just don't, Chris, where are you on this?
I'm of the mind that most people don't care about the stuff that a lot of people talk about on the internet. Like a game, we've mentioned other games on the show that like we know are abject failures that have still somehow sold millions of copies, and in some cases, the fact that some of these games sell over 1 million at all, given their bad reputation, is kind of proof.
It's a lot of people.
Proof enough that like this shit doesn't really matter. And then you look at like how many people actually see a tweet and how many people engage with it and how many views a video has. It's just like it's comical to even link to even link these things. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Dragon Age to me just it didn't succeed because it didn't have good word of mouth. The clips that people were seeing from it were just not very flattering, and also the people who played it and reviewed it just didn't really rave about it. We're living again, and I've said this many times, it's not enough for a game to just be good, and I think on the face of it, I think Dragon Age probably for most people, if most people were to sit down and play Dragon Age, and I say most people as in most people who play games, not necessarily people who like are enthusiasts and digest a lot of content related to it. I wouldn't be surprised if most people who sat down to play Dragon Age the Veilguard came away from it being like, yes, good. It's fine. It's competent. It's not like broken in any real way. It's like they might have like, it looks a little weird or whatever, but I would imagine most people kind of just feel nothing about it. Or like they're apathetic and it's just like, yeah, this is decent, but like who cares? And I just think that's kind of like that's in some ways worse of a death knell than something being abjectly bad, something like you almost prefer a so bad it's good type thing to people just not caring. And in my view, that's kind of what killed Dragon Age, is nobody really cared. Because what was there that was good was just not good enough to rip their attention away from like so much else that is better and in many ways fantastic. Like you're not going to get somebody to play Dragon Age over Baldur's Gate. It's not even in the fucking conversation.
Yeah, and there's just the expectations game is just tough too, where it's like, man, 1 million, 1.2, 1.3 million people. It's a lot of people that bought your game, but it's just insufficient. It's what I was saying on the recent episode of SideQuest, where it's like it's just wildly insufficient to like these single player games are becoming daunting. And that actually leads into our final inquiry from Izzy Smalls, who wrote in and said, hey, CDC. After listening to Colin and others lament the need to go back to old IP like BioWare or Insomniac being relegated to Marvel games, it got me thinking, are we drastically overvaluing new IP? I know that sounds crazy, but the numbers don't back up the alleged desire for new IP in 2025. Insomniac made a new IP years ago in Sunset Overdrive and it flopped. New unique IP like Hi-Fi Rush, Concrete Genie, Astral Chain are exactly the type of games many claim they want, but they don't buy. Capcom is enjoying their most success releasing remakes, remasters, and sequels. Same for Nintendo. All I mostly hear from PlayStation fans are reviving old IP, not making new ones. The top-selling games every year are filled with sequels, remakes, and annualized sports games. I also want new IP. It's something that PlayStation doesn't get enough credit for, in my opinion. I just think it's time to admit we are in the minority. This might be true, but I just continue to push people to understand that there would have been no Uncharted if Naughty Dog kept just making Jack games. There would have been no Last of Us if they kept making Uncharted games. There would be no Interstellar if they kept making the Last of Us games. You can have both of those things. We'll get more Last of Us. We're going to get more Uncharted. But I just think like the forcing your way forward is smart. It's just dangerous. There are plenty of examples of games. Metaphor is one of them where it's like, this is a new IP and people really liked it. A lot of new IP fails, but I don't think that that's really unique to games. I think that's unique to everything. A lot of TV shows get canceled. A lot of movies bomb. Books sit on store shelves. Music doesn't get bought. I just think that that's the nature of the beast. I think Banishers is a really good example of that where, and I didn't beat the game, but Don't Nod trying something like that. I feel like 10 years ago, that would have been pretty big. And now I just feel like, there is a saturation level, but I don't think it's because it's a sequel. I just don't think there was a market for what they were trying to do regardless. And leaning too much into sequels, I think is just it's rote and it's boring. We need to have both. And we've always had both. We've had both for decades. But I feel like the risk aversion is becoming, this goes all in the price propositions and how much people are willing to pay and how much games cost to make. I mean, it's the risk aversion is all due to that financial question. So that's it. I fucking guarantee you most of these teams want to make new stuff every time. But it's such a waste of money and resources to be like, oh, we made Ghost of Tsushima. We've learned so much. We have to make another one. Like you have to. You got to do it. That was part of the investment. And that's cool. But I bet you a lot of people at Sucker Punch would have wanted to make something different. And I know if I'm a creative person, I don't really want to make sequels too much. Tribreaker was pitched to me. I didn't necessarily think we were ever going to make a sequel to that. So, but then there's things like Habroxia that we do that get a lot of versions of games. So I just want, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying here necessarily other than I think we need both high quality. And I don't think we can look at Concrete Genie or Hi-Fi Rush and shit and be like, oh, these are failures. Like these are just games without a market. I mean, that's it. What do you think, Chris?
No, I mean, I think the fallacy inherent to this argument is that like everything that is listed as like a successful IP or like, an old IP was at one point new. So like I'll never be able to not see that in this argument where I'm just like, listen, just because something doesn't succeed when you try it doesn't mean it wasn't worth doing. There's many reasons why things couldn't fail or succeed that are completely independent to the quality of the actual game or the quality of the actual show or movie or anything. Like sometimes, I mean, this used to happen a lot with movies, actually. Like movies used to like, and TV shows too. Like they would get canceled and then put on DVD and then everybody's buying the DVDs and suddenly like they got a hit on their hands. Like, oh shit, we shouldn't have canceled this. Let's bring it back. That happened with Family Guy like twice. And other shows as well. And movies become, they fail at the box office. There's so many movies that people talk about now where I'm just like, Evil Dead. Oh my God. And I love Evil Dead, right? But like that was a box office fucking failure. Evil Dead is only good in retrospect because of like the cult, proliferation of that DVD or that VHS. Like it. So I don't know if I believe this line of reasoning. It's like, well, we should only, or there's no demand for new IP. There is. It's just a matter of like timing is everything. The right product at the right time and the right environment is a huge part of it. But even if nothing comes of it, I think I just think it's good to flex the muscle because you're still learning something anyway. Like if you made a game that didn't work well, it's very unlikely that 100% of that game didn't work well. It's very likely that maybe even 30% of it was fucking great. And it was just bogged down by the other 70s. Like, oh, fuck, we learned a lot from making this game. Let's focus on that 30%. Let's try and make something else. And then who knows, maybe the next thing you make that you get out of that is the thing that you're looking for. And I don't know. I'll always kind of be inherently against the idea that we should just solely rely on old things because as much as I like old things and I'm happy to play remasters and remakes, I think you only get more of those. You only get more of those new experiences if you try to make new shit. Like there's no arguing your way around that. I mean, there's so many shows even now today, like Severance. Severance is a new show. You know how many shows probably got canceled while they were trying to make Severance and other things? It's probably a bunch. So,
no doubt.
So I don't know.
No doubt. Dustin, anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think Sony sees the importance that at some point your IP well dries up and you must go somewhere else, or else you risk killing the IP for much longer than putting it on a break.
Believe it.
I don't want to, I don't want to shit on Microsoft, but I think Microsoft did have this problem where they kind of went to their well of Halo, Gears, and just kept pushing and pushing. And that now, not that those series aren't successful, they are, but they certainly don't have the cachet that they once did. Maybe that will change at some point. I feel like there is a little bit of a different feeling about this new Gears game in particular. But there's been a decent amount of time. They've kind of let Gears sit for a little bit. So
yeah.
I think Sony is looking at this. They looked at Uncharted 4, and I think they could have made an Uncharted 5 that was successful, but probably not as successful, since we've kind of been there and done that 4, 5 are different times technically. So I think that's part of the thing, is that you must invest in new things to become successful. The other thing I wanted to comment on is, it's funny you said that new unique IPs like Hi-Fi Rush, Concrete Genie, Astral Chain. Astral Chain sold over 1 million copies, so it's not like nobody bought that. The other thing is Sunset Overdrive, I think, is a victim of the platform that it was on. And we see this happen. Nintendo talked about how Pikmin 4 has sold more than every other Pikmin game combined, from the fact that it was a new game on that IP launched on Switch, and many people's first Pikmin game. So I wonder if in a different reality, Sunset Overdrive was released on PlayStation, or maybe even now, if it was remastered or remade and put on PlayStation, if that would be a different scenario. It's not the Xbox One. I mean, Xbox One was pretty bad, but I just don't know if it was the right fit for that game and that time frame. So maybe not, though. I remember playing it thinking it was pretty cool, but it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was looking up because you looked up you had the Astral Chain sales numbers. Hi-Fi Rush sold fairly decently considering what it was too. And Concrete Genie, I went and tried to look it up because I know the Concrete Genie numbers are in the Insomniac leak, but it seems like no one has spun them out. But I'm pretty sure it was fairly strong too. Like I think Medieval even, which was Other Ocean, but that sold like 500,000 copies. Concrete Genie probably did more than 1 million. It's just that it's just insufficient. It's just totally insufficient, wildly insufficient, sadly, even for a game like that. So
yeah, and that kind of comes into a weird situation too, where it's like you look at 1 million in sales at one point in the past would have been amazing, but now everything's expensive, and
1 million in sales on PS1 would have gotten you reprinted with the green label.
Right, exactly. So so the question is, it's like, oh well, the question we should really be asking is like, oh well, do people want new IP? I feel like because these games sell well and they sell over 1 million, it's like people clearly do. It's just a matter of like whether or not the industry views those numbers as sufficient as compared to the way that they used to. And I don't think we should necessarily glean the success of something based on the industry's understanding of it. And we were even talking a little bit earlier about like the football game, where they're like, it's insufficient, even though it's like one of the best selling games probably like ever. It feels like, Yeah,
I was reading about that, and they were saying like it's got like a shorter tail and like less user engagement and shit. It's like all these like weird stats that they're like certainly tracking.
Yeah. So I guess all that is to say is like, don't necessarily take some publisher's word for it that like, oh well, this didn't do super well, so we're not. I mean, that's often true, but don't mistake these two things as like lack of interest. Like, there's a lot of interest. It's just, is it enough for them? Is it enough for their arbitrary limit to decide on whether or not to continue with something. It's like, maybe not. That doesn't mean people aren't hungry for new shit.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting conversation. Izzy, thank you for writing in. Yeah, it's an interesting talk to try to figure this out. Ultimately, I think it'll be in the hands of the consumer as always. And I think that you're probably right, Izzy. Like that I don't know that we're in the minority. I just don't think that there are a lot of people buying a lot of new games, period, right now. Or at least that's spread out. The money is there. It's just spread out amongst a bunch of different products. And so cost needs to get reined in so that the expectations are easier to meet. And we can get back to maybe not 1 million copies being great for a AAA game, but a couple million, a few million. It all depends, really. All right. That's it. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols PlayStation Podcast. It was a good one. Let's get the hell out of here. It's time to go. Chris, let's say goodbye to you first. Are you going to go back to the village hidden in sand now?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I got to go get egg prices in the village are getting crazy.
Yeah.
So I got to go get myself some eggs.
Yeah. Bird flu.
Yeah,
do you want any of
whatever.
the hand signs from your village, Chris?
My village specific? I don't know about that.
Just how about anything you've learned? I'd love to see it.
I remember this.
Oh yeah, very.
I don't
good.
know what that is though. I have no idea.
Very good. That
What?
pleases me.
I'm trying to find other videos.
It pleases me. What are you looking
That
for?
pleases your Hokage.
I was looking for
very
the sand people like sand people.
I mean,
they're
be
Tusken Raiders.
careful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like all sorts of videos. Why the Sand Village betrayed the leaf in the Chunin exams. Okay, not what I was looking for. Thank you for that anyway.
nerd shit.
Dustin, Hokage, goodbye to you. Be well.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your day.
I mentioned this last week, but I'm so excited for Severance tonight. This is the episode that reviewers, people that got screeners that were like, episode 4 is crazy, and watch it as soon as possible if you're online, because people are going to want to talk about it as soon as possible. So tonight's the night. And then tomorrow, my normie television, Hell's Kitchen season finale.
Oh,
So it's my first
damn.
time watching it. I've never watched Hell's Kitchen at all. I watched the entire season. So
cool.
we're going to find out who wins.
I watched that in college for a couple seasons. It was good.
To my, I mean, it's like any other reality show that once you've seen a season, they are all basically the same.
Didn't you go to
Just
Hell's
different
Kitchen?
people. I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. In DC, and it was cool. It's good.
Cool.
Did you get the risotto?
No, but I did get the Wellington.
The risotto.
There was
It's fucking roll. I love Gordon Ramsay. He's like one of my favorite.
he's the best
personalities ever.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's
See when
totally
he,
he's hysterical. Damn.
Did you see when he fucking? Like, I don't even know. He got like hit by a truck or something. Did you see that?
No, he had a motorcycle accident.
Right. Yeah.
He really fucked him up.
Oh,
Dude, he's
recently?
crazy.
But he's fine now.
Oh, good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's all right.
Jeez.
It's him and Jay Leno really been through it.
And Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford.
By land, by air, and by sea. You ever see the video that gets circulated sometimes of the guy riding like a barge or whatever, and he's asleep, and the barge just runs right into the land, and he like wakes up and like falls off the thing? It's like, Jesus Christ, man, you can do some damage with those things too. The boats on the water. Stay off the water. All right, my friends, it's time to go. It's good to be here with you guys again. Thank you for your time. Thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support involving Sacred Symbols and Last Stand. Couldn't do it without you over at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Tired, can't talk. Actually, I could say it now. It's secretly been dealing with it, although she's fine. Is that Treble had hives, and so Micah brought her to the vet, but she's apparently fine. So
Good.
So I was checking my watch, but she's apparently okay. So we're dealing with that. But it's 57 degrees. Maybe I'll go for a walk and be done with it. My friends, be well. Good to see you again. I'm going to now return to the village hidden in sand as well. Please believe it. Till next time. Goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.